All right, good evening, everybody. Well, I guess it's the last Saturday in March, and we're moving on to April. We're in the springtime, and I think this is roughly the first full year of Divided We Stand, because I think we started the end of March last year. So, hooray for us, meaning everybody, us. Those of you who are part of Divided We Stand, and the people on the air. So, thank you for being a part of this. And as you know, David and I went into this endeavor because of the fact that we knew that getting along with the Republican Party or Republicans in general would be untenable in the future, at least in its present form, and obviously it's continuing. And last week we were talking about the fact that even though Trump was out, we still feel like we're in the same position now that we were before. And if this past week is any clue, it's just as bad as ever. So tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about voter suppression again. And Dave's going to introduce another topic in a few seconds. I'll let him do it. Okay. So in any case, I want to introduce our David Price, otherwise known as the guy who has nothing better to do on Saturday nights or any other night. Dave, how you doing?
Doing well, considering that there are still Republicans in the land. And I think I'll be saying that perhaps as long as there are Republicans. But, if you look at the whole country, and it's interesting, as we've both said, and others have said, people far brighter than us, we were facing so many viruses, if you will. The Trump virus, the Trump himself virus is gone. But of course, the enabling that he did and emboldening that he did, and some of the power that he had is still with us. But he himself, I've said, and I think, you have to be. I don't see how he can make it through his legal obstacles to ever run again. But right now, he's a force, a formidable force in the Republican Party. But the one that I'm most optimistic tonight about, of course, is the idea of where we're headed on our way out of this pandemic. You said last time, you said at the beginning of the show, it's a 1 year, and we did start talking about it in March. But I mean, I don't know when we actually got on the air. But yeah, it's been, and that was, the pandemic, the virus was everything. And if I'm amazed about anything, it's how quickly that science, despite the limitations of Trump and the Republican Party and whatever else is out there, they were able to come through. And every day, more and more Americans are getting the vaccine. It's not enough yet, but it's coming. So, I think on the one hand, of course, there's reason for optimists to smile tonight. So I'm an optimist. I'll smile. But the realistic side of me says the battle is against what I consider to be more un-American than any Mideastern terrorist. The tactics of the Republican Party, they're just anathema to everything America stands for. So let's beat up on them tonight, and we'll try to come up with some ideas of how to stop them, Bri, if you feel
Right.
like that.
Thank you, Dave. Right. I was thinking about this all week, and you've been hearing all of the talk shows talking about the fact that the Jim Crow is back. The president lashed out against it, saying it was sick, and it is sick. And they unabashedly are doing this. They have no problem with it. And you saw, was it a state representative or a congresswoman who was arrested trying to knock
Yeah,
on the door?
yeah. I mean, and there was memes are funny things, Brian. A lot of them don't mean anything, but sometimes they do. There's one making the rounds. I don't know if anybody out there has seen it. On one side, you have the state representative in Georgia, of course, black, because if she was white, she'd just walk in the room, being arrested and charged, and juxtaposed with the people taking over the Capitol, and we're still looking for some of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
So certainly, a double standard in America, but not even a stand for a standard for people if the Republicans get a hold of the country
So
or
we
states.
want to say hello to some people here. We got Sandy's here, Anthony's
Hey,
here.
Sandy.
We've got Joey, of course. Evil Yoda's here tonight so far, and who knows who's going to drop by. So uh,
You think
we're
Donald Trump? You think Donald Trump will come by?
no, I think we mean nothing to him. And in fact, in
Mm.
fact, I don't think we mean anything to any Republican. Which brings up, the point about what's going on here. As I said, they unabashedly are doing this. They know that as we've said over and over, Dave, that the country is browning. There's nothing they can stop. We know that even in states like Texas and in Georgia, it's going the other way. In fact, I still wonder if Beta actually really lost that election. So they're smart enough to understand that the numbers aren't on their side. And it looks now as though the tact that the president's going to take is have the Justice Department get involved and see if they can attack it this way. We always have to worry about the Supreme Court. We don't know how they're going to react. In my opinion, it won't look good. But I think it was Tucker Carlson, Dave, this week who said that he can see in 10 years this country having a dictator. And I think that's the only way that they really can take political control of this country in any way. And that would be through some form of chicanery, and then that, of course, that would lead to a dictator. In fact, this is why I think we saved ourselves from a dictatorship, because we essentially
Right.
had
Oh yeah.
somewhat of a dictatorship. I think you would agree.
Oh no,
But
no question. I
but
mean,
if Trump had won and if we had
oh
lost Georgia, a lot of the things went right. As you had said, you clearly said, look at the things that went right. We look at with Jim Clyburn, with what happened in Georgia, as far as Stacey Abrams, all those things kind of worked, and you had the perfect storm of good things happening, which usually don't happen. And in this case, it did. So we were very, very lucky. And it's
absolutely
kind
no
of like
question.
getting the vaccine, a week before you're going to get done
Right.
in. So in that sense, we were very, very lucky. And I think we should never take that for granted. Even January 6th, we got lucky that they didn't,
Oh
you know, storm the Capitol and win.
well, I don't know about that, Brian, because did President Trump say this week? I don't listen to him, but I think I saw somewhere where he said there was never any danger while they were there. Didn't he say? I believe he said something like that. Man, I mean, he was president, right? So he have to know what was going. I mean, yeah, it never ceases to amaze me. I keep saying the same things, but it's just you can't have a country. You can have a country with differences. That's no problem. America's never been united. You can anybody. I've defied people now for 4 solid years, going on to now into a fifth year, to show me a time when the country was truly united. It's never been. Where all parties were equal and united, right? However, we survived and we did that. But I think there was always kind of not the civility that they talk about. My God, I was doing research this week. I mean, there were fist fights in the House of Representatives and people. I mean, it was just bad, right? But what you did have is kind of an agreement on reality. Like a horse was a horse, and this was that, and that wall was a wall. And I mean, we don't even have that now. I mean, when you can it's one thing to say, yes, that's a fact, but I disagree with it. It's another to say that's not even a fact. That's not even a fact. Well, no, it is. It's either a fact, it's either true or not true. Certain things, right? Now, there are things, that we're not certain about. I'll get them. Yes, many people believe it's a fact that there is a God. That is not a fact. That is a belief.
To believe.
Okay, there's a big difference. So when someone says to me, there's no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to say no, just no. But so that's where we are now. I want to pick on something. You said the Jim Crow. Now think about this for a moment, Brian. This is what struck me in this crazy week, maybe more than anything else. Okay, you have Kemp, the governor of Georgia, who I believe, if you look back, certainly if he didn't steal the election from Stacey Abrams, he certainly played fast and loose with the rules to get there. Right. So we've already determined. He didn't flat out do what Trump said, but he's no good guy, right? And again, of course, what would you expect? You see the signing, right? All white men. Of course, that's what you would expect. But this is what this is just amazes me. If I were going to sign that, I wouldn't sign it under the picture of a plantation where I think the number was more than 500 Black men, women, and children were enslaved. Really? I mean, why is that picture up, first of all?
Right. It was
we know
great
why.
center stage there.
No, but why was it up in the Georgia mansion? You could answer, or you could ask them that. But then why would you stage it there? Well, I'll tell you why you stage it there. That's the audience you're playing to. I mean, it's they really, when I say they, I'm talking about the Republicans, they really believe that they can do this without any support from a minority other than the people that they think they already have, which are the Cubans, and to a certain extent, the Latin Americans. And again, I've been seeing this a lot, and maybe somebody on the show can help me out tonight, or if they've read it more. There was a drift between Hispanics didn't vote for Biden and voted more for Trump than they did Clinton in that. But does that mean anything? I don't know. I don't have any idea what that is yet, and how big was it, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I keep thinking about that plantation picture. And like I said, some people say, "Oh, I'm shocked." No, that was a deliberate. It had to. They know it's there. They know what they're
And why
doing.
does he have it there anyway? Even if it
Well, I
was there,
said
why is it there
no.
anyway?
Well, because why did I come here and move here 10 years ago? And the street is Jefferson Davis. I mean, the highway. It's a major highway. A 6-lane highway goes in front of our apartment complex, named Jefferson Davis Highway. Uh, well, because it's Virginia, and Virginia was the South. Now, I will say to people that despair and say this is Virginia was the South, man. I mean, think about it, right? Richmond, the capital, of the South, until they had to, try to secure it further south because the North was coming in. So move it to Alabama. But the idea is a solid Southern state is now as solid blue as you can get, right? Now, again, it is an extremely divided state. But right now, things are happening in Virginia that people that were here 12 years ago.
Sorry,
I'm echoing, Brian. It's
I
okay.
got you.
Okay. 12 years ago, we arrived 10, are just amazed at. I mean, things like, marijuana is going to be approved. The death penalty has been abolished. Still a gun carry state, but moves are, in place that we just never thought would happen. So you mentioned Georgia, you mentioned Texas. I would throw in North Carolina. So the Republicans, they're not naive. I mean, they can look at it and say, okay, well, how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to keep everybody from voting that we think might vote against
stop
us.
right there for a second because I want to ask you. It deals exactly with what you're talking about,
right?
Because we've talked about the numbers. They obviously knew that the demographics are not good for them. It will never be the way they want it, especially with immigration and the fact that just in general, people with less money tend to have more kids than people who are educated and well-to-do. That's happened in Europe. We see it around the world, and it kind of follows that pattern. So they knew the writing was on the wall. How much do you think the scenario is this, that a lot of them had these private discussions in some way or form and said, look, we are at 0 hour here. We have to do something. This is the nuclear option. We will lose our country unless we have, the Great White Hope, from 1910 with Jim Jeffries, that they had to say, okay, we have to do something. And then, of course, they lost the election. So now that Trump couldn't even do his de facto coup anymore because we were able to come through. But now they say we'll never win another election. So this is what they're doing. Is this a sort of like an open cabal where this is why they're doing this? And
I think one of the things,
unstoppable.
Everybody has their passions, right? And one of mine has always, since 1968, as I said, I've always been studying politics, looking at it. Not always right about it, but see. So I think you look at two former presidents as getting us to where we were then. One is Richard Nixon, who actually started this idea, of law and order, the Republican Party dealing with law and order, and of course the Southern strategy, which was to flip the Dixie Democrats and make them into Republican. And both of those came to reality. Of course, the irony is that before Donald Trump, Richard Nixon probably broke more laws than any other president. So your law and order president was breaking the law. But the main thing, and I don't know how much is him or how much is the people he was surrounded about. This started with Ronald Reagan, no question about it. So they have people, I believe, in the Republican Party, firm believers, not as crazy, I don't think, as they are now, though some may have been. They started looking and saying, my God, look at the demographics, right? We have to do something. Now, you say, Dave, where's your proof? Well, you could show a lot of ways, but I'll just give you one. You're fascinated. You're really glad, I know, that your girl, Amy Barrett Coney, replaced Judge Ginsburg. Do you know, here's what happened. Are you ready? Do you know where she went to college, Brian? Undergraduate.
You know what? I think I did know, and I forgot.
You wouldn't, and I would. That's a totally unfair question, right?
Is it someplace in Georgia? I don't.
No, Notre Dame.
Okay, that's right.
Now, Notre Dame, at the time, was a bastion of conservative thinking, right? And they looked at her and they say she's bright. Okay. Now, you might, other people might not agree. And they said, okay, you looked at it. We're going to need women. And she was actually groomed as you looked at her jobs, who she got and who she went through to be right where she is today. Now, that doesn't mean that day they chose her, right?
No, I understand, but
What it
they've gone
meant,
through that process
but
of
but what I'm saying, they looked maybe at 10 women, 20, I don't know how many, right?
right.
And said,
They know who the
if we do this, and this, right, then if things break right, we'll be ready. The other thing that the Democrats, if I were to fault them, I mean, I can because I'm a liberal, not a Democrat. uh, they looked, and not necessarily, I say fault them. I don't know if it's a mistake. They looked for national power, right? The presidency. And the Republicans realized even that would be hard. So what did they do? They focused on the states they could win, right?
mm-hmm.
And they did an outstanding job of winning those states, right? Now, you're right off the South, but look at what's happening. Pennsylvania has a very strong, Republican grouping. Michigan, there were always Democratic states in the legislature. Now, that's really where a lot of the power is, and that's what we're seeing now. This is nothing new. I'm doing some research for an article I'm writing about actually the forming of the country. And this is really just another example of states' rights versus federal power. It was there before the country started. And once again, it comes down to conservative and liberal views. Once again, it comes down in a certain interesting way to slavery and anti-slavery. Okay. And that means it's economics. I mean, it's all the things that we see today were played out in the formation of the country. But what the Republicans were right, but you can't stop sometimes what happens. And so what happens is in New Mexico, which they controlled, right? It was a Western state. In Arizona, which they controlled, was a Western state. In Virginia, which they controlled, which was a Southern state. Now, Georgia, it's not a Democratic state yet, but it's, Atlanta gets very much bigger. It's going to be. And they really didn't pick up any other places, right? Ohio's always been a battleground state. Pennsylvania is just like America. In fact, it's a really good analogy if you think about it. Okay, so America has the two coasts, right? And then everything in between is anti.
Right.
Well, Pennsylvania has Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and everything in between is pretty much Republican, right? And some of these things, people always knew. There's always been the squabble between cities and rural. And what's happening though is cities, by the fact that they have more people, have more votes. That's just the way it should be. But so you have to work against that. So really, what we're seeing is the Republicans come up with what's the number now? 200 and I don't know, 250 possibilities of bills passed or in progress. And I don't know if I didn't realize this until I was doing some reading on it. With the Georgia bill, they put another 100 pages in of bad stuff. Now, I mean, even at the end. So, I mean, not that it's 100 times worse, but it's worse than even what they proposed going in. They didn't put it after the vote. I'm saying they kind of kept it, put it in there and had the votes and went with it. But here's the other thing. People, again, far brighter that I read, said, yes, you even mentioned, how horrible it is, and you can't give water, and I'll talk about that later, and all these stuff, and you can't vote after 5 o'clock. I mean, just bizarre things. If you
Why
think
don't
of
they just
democracy,
say if you're not white, you can't
well,
vote? I mean, they just don't
because
lie.
you don't want to know something, Ryan? They're getting real close to that.
Right.
They
I
used to
mean,
call it. They used to call it dog whistling. Certainly, what Ron Johnson did wasn't dog whistling. That
right.
was flat out. If you're black, I know you might hurt me, but if you're white, I know you won't. I mean, that's one of the dumbest statements ever made on the Senate floor. But back to the point. You know what's really brutal about the Georgia thing? You know what kept Georgia from bad was, and he was a Republican, and I hope Trump goes to prison over it. That pressure he put on the election officials,
Right.
right, to change it, and they held the line, right, said
Mm-hmm.
no. Guess who now controls all elections in Georgia? The party in power.
Mm-hmm.
No, Worse, the state legislature. They did away with all the other commissions. So the state legislature decides and can apportion votes as it sees
Well,
fit.
then maybe we'll have something like happened with George Wallace, and then you'll have to have the National Guard come in.
Well, now here you said it, Brian, very well, and this is what we have to watch play out. Okay, you have a couple avenues. One is the Justice Department. You know, does this break laws of the land? Segregation laws, anti-voting laws, etc. Then you've got the other side of the Supreme Court. They've already filed legal challenges, uh, and of
As
course,
they
even
must.
well, oh God, yes. It was filed. It was filed within minutes, not minutes, but
They knew
within
that
hours.
something like that would be a possibility. They had to
And
know.
now and then you have to look at the intangibles you were mentioning before. Sometimes you do have to rely on luck. I mean, you do.
I
Stacey
hate to do
Abrams.
that, though. I'll say that much as a
Well,
Republican.
of course you do, but sometimes you have to. Stacey Abrams, every American who believes in democracy, which would mean just don't let the Republicans show up that day, owes a debt of gratitude to Stacey Abrams for what she did in Georgia. Now, she didn't do it alone, right? Of course, so you owe everybody who worked with her a debt of gratitude, but they didn't do it alone. You then look to every Black American who saved. I mean, Georgia saved democracy, or no, I mean, it didn't save democracy. That's it. What they did is give democracy a better chance to fight through this than if the two Republicans had been there. And then you have to look at the particular subset of Black voters, which would be female Black voters, because they vote in larger numbers. And really, you mentioned Senator Clyburn. I mean, think about it. I mean, South Carolina restored Joe Biden as a possible presidential candidate. If he had lost South Carolina, he was done. Right? Now, that doesn't mean the other candidates were good. I just don't know the way it took you. I'll accept Biden because he beat Trump, and I don't know what the others would have done. So, is it scary? Yes, but we have to look at now. Your friend Gary Peacock, no, my friend Gary Peacock, raised an interesting thing, and he's already fighting the fight, and he's joined it. The fight will also be economic, Brian.
The boycotts.
There's a lot of power. Now, they asked very nicely, would Delta, Coke, and Home Depot, which are the three largest companies, I believe.
Home Depot's always been a supporter of Trump. That's a problem.
Well, yeah, Home Depot's gone. I mean, nobody should go to Home Depot unless they want to go to Home Depot.
Go to Lowe's. Go to Lowe's.
Yeah, if you can, right? I mean, they're equal, but something I love Home Depot. Fine, let's go. But understand. But the two that could be in some way influenced would be Delta and Coke, and so we shall see. Economic boycotts can be very powerful, and it's not so much the economic boycott itself; it's the idea of the threat, not the threat, but the idea of you're under this cloud type thing. So you've got. So I would rather have Stacey Abrams working for me than I would Ted Cruz or any of the Republicans. She's brighter. She's a harder worker. The question becomes: Can that be duplicated? Well, two questions out. Can Georgia be duplicated in other southern or western states? That's question one, and I think that hinges on how big the cities get. That's what's happening in Texas, Brian. Austin. Austin's a very liberal town. It's becoming big. It's becoming Houston's a more conservative town. The most conservative town is Dallas. Okay, I mean that's
right.
That's the old oil money, and that'll be a while before that changes. But as Houston, as these other things change, but that doesn't apply in some other places. So that's one. Can it be duplicated? And second thing is, if those Georgia laws stand, it's going to be pretty damn hard. However, those people, meaning the disadvantaged, poor, meaning basically Black voters, who've been subject to 402 years now of oppression, including the worst of all, right? Slavery, Jim Crow, and now, stood in line for 7 to 8 hours to vote, right? I think they'll do it again if they have to, and there may be more of them. The problem is when you start what the Republicans have done, you have to hope that the other side just throws up their hands and say, well, we can't do anything about it. Right. Um, Anthony, great question. They can do
They
it
play
because
dirty.
Republic.
They play dirty. They're in control and they play dirty.
I don't even know. I mean, I'm not so interested in dirty. I mean, I'm not cutting you off, and you're
Well,
right.
that's what's
I'm
happening. It's why they're
I'm
German. I
just
mean,
I'm
that's why.
well, I understand that, right? What they're using, the
And we
difference
play a
to
generally clean game, and
the
that makes it
difference
hard.
is that's exactly right. The Republicans at this point will do anything to win. There's nothing.
They're like the professional. Make a metaphor here. The professional wrestler. He's like Chief Jay Strongbow was the good guy, and then there was
Right.
some masked guy, and he was hiding the salt when he was getting his ass
Yeah.
beat, and he take
Right.
it out
And
of
then
his pants, and he
right. Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
And
Well,
of course, the referee never saw it, and that's the Supreme Court. And they're like,
now again, Brian, remember you and I used to go at it, not at it, we don't go at it, but Supreme Court, and you had your point. But I still, interesting enough, I still have more faith than some people do in John Roberts. And here's why. John Roberts, it's his court. Nobody will know. I think history will identify Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and history may identify Anthony Scalia. The rest of them are just footnotes to history.
well, if they're in
right?
control of the history books, it may not even matter.
Well, that's true. But what I'm saying is, Roberts is not going to want to have on his record.
Right? It would look really, like it's.
If there's any way, now I'm going to go on record tonight. Dave's posturing again. No, I'm going to say this. This is true, and I'm going to ask everyone who's listening tonight and everyone that I know from here on out to say, if the Georgia law stands, if it does, I don't think it will, but if it does, I guarantee you, and it's a little easier for me because I'm retired. I'm going to Georgia. I'm going to get cases of water, and I'm going out and give water to as many people as I can.
Yeah.
Until I get arrested. And you say, oh, yeah, no, fine. Again, you've got to do what you got to do.
Got to do
right?
what you got to do.
And so, if everybody just throws up their hands, oh, no, I'm not going to do it. So, Brian, the other thing we have to do, too, is let the people fight where they are. Let Biden do it his way. Let the Justice Department do it their way. Let
Or
the
can,
Georgia.
Can you get, if we have, like you mentioned, the economic thing, if we control roughly 70% of the economy in this country,
Correct.
why not use that and threaten me? Like, we already know what happened to Sidney Powell when she had the lawsuit with Dominion. These people started getting scared, and all of a sudden they're backtracking. I didn't say that.
I think what you're saying, Brian, again, and history will prove us right or wrong.
Every single company, you say, do you support this or not?
Well, what you're starting to see that, okay? You're starting to see that. I think because what the Republicans are doing is so egregious, right? This is like, and remember, nothing changes quickly, Brian. Usually there's a few TV moments, okay? Now, because, we're a video world.
Right.
With civil rights, really what changed it are the TV pictures of water hoses and dogs biting children. That's really what changed it. Not the Pettus Bridge, not all the other stuff that was going on, right? With Vietnam, what changed it is every night in the living rooms, you were seeing this war. And then you began to look at it, and then you began to hear the figures. I found out yesterday was my birthday. So I just looked and things, find out who was born on my day. And I found out I wanted everybody to be good, but they weren't. General William Westmoreland, who was something else in Vietnam. He was born on that day. But the idea was Westmoreland lied, about the stats, and they did multiple body counts. And, it was just as fudged as the Republicans are now. But eventually the country caught up. The Black Lives Matter. We saw things there, right? The George Floyd killing. It's somehow when it comes into your living room. So, this voter suppression isn't into our living rooms yet, right? Mm-hmm. Those of us who, understand. But, right now, a lot of people are just trying to get through the day, Brian. It's still bad out there in the pandemic. We feel, like I said, I feel good about it in terms of, but, certainly I wasn't pandemic proof, but being retired, I didn't have to worry about a job. I didn't have to worry about my family because our immediate family's in Australia. It's doing very good. So I had all these wonderful things. But as it begins to hit home and be driven home by great communicators Whether it's Rachel Maddow on MSNBC or Anderson Cooper, who plays it more straight on CNN. Fox. Now, you brought that up, and I like this. I like this. Fox is running scared. Did you see they shut Trump up this week?
I heard something of that. Please tell us.
Well, what happened was he's on the show and he started spouting this thing and said, we're going to move on because that's where you get this lawsuit. Now, you want an American hero? This is so crazy for me, really. It's not about me, but I'm going to say it about me. Radical anti-politician, always on the outside of all confrontations I've ever been in. That's what I like. I like being on the outside, teacher versus board, journalist versus corporate, all this kind of stuff. And suddenly now I'm finding myself cheering, the administration. Wow, is that weird? And also cheering the company you mentioned. A voting company that's made a lot of money. They're absolutely right, and they're not playing around.
Smartmatic too. They're not. There's another one too.
There's just not just one, and that's going to be interesting how that plays out. Okay, there's no question. There's no question that those remarks were untrue that they made on Fox News and other places, and while it's difficult to sue, you're not supposed to say things that are blatantly.
And by the way,
untrue.
Dave, think about that. Now, if you have people like Giuliani, Lou Dobbs, and
Right.
Sidney Powell, if they all have different defense strategies, that kind of also seems a little bit strange. Like one's going to say, "Well, you can't be serious. You actually thought I was being serious," and then another person's saying,
there's Sidney Powell
"Let's
now.
look at the machines and we'll prove it."
But see what position you get yourself in when you're with the evil peoples and you get caught. Sidney Powell doesn't like if they accept. She may avoid being sued, right? But she's going to lose her law practice because basically she's saying I was a charlatan. I didn't believe this, and I went in. And you're never, as a lawyer, supposed to go in and present something you basically know is false as truth. That's a no-no in our American legal system. So again, darkness has descended on the land, right? We'll get biblical there for a moment. But there's all these little lights around, right? And we don't know yet. And the story's never going to be over, Brian. It's never going to be over because, as I say, again, America has always been divided. But the problem is we all live in these divided periods, right? And I've lived in two massive periods, the Vietnam War and civil rights, and now this one. And everybody says, well, Vietnam War ended and got some civil rights. That was bad, Brian. That was bad at the time.
It was very bad.
That was bad at the time, but we got out of this one, and we don't know the outcome yet. Right. That's what's so frightening. And I mean, and that's why I can't tell you or anyone else with certainty. Well, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen because it happened that way. No, there's none of that. What I will say is that I don't see how you can defend the law and claim to value voters' rights. If you can pull that off in our legal system, and if you can pull that off,
but they're going to have to lie and just say we really care, but we just want to have a fair election.
That's what they're doing. I mean, but that's not what they want. I mean, it's so clearly obvious.
And if you're right, that's the point. It's so obvious that even the Supreme Court should know, like, this is bullshit. You're going through the game, and you know what's really going to happen.
And the other thing is, look, I've said it before, the 9 most powerful people in the country, individuals and collectively, are the Supreme Court. Because all they got to get is 5 of them to agree, right? All they got to do is get 5 to agree. Now, what happens is...
Can't Clarence Thomas go on a long vacation?
Clarence will be there. I'm going to make a prediction. Clarence will be there until they carry him out. I think
he's the worst possible.
Well, but Brian, it doesn't matter because he believes that he's the best. Not the best, but I mean, he believes he's okay, right? I mean, it's very hard. Okay. I kind of believe, and interesting. I wish we could get some Republicans on here so I could talk to them about it. Doing, I really believe that right now, if you're Republican, you suffer from a mental disease. I mean, I believe that. I'm not saying you're crazy. I'm just saying there's something wrong. Well, or you're suffering from an addiction, right? Kind of that thing. Well, either way, if you have a mental disease or an addiction, until you realize you have it, you don't do anything about it and you think it's normal. And I speak with experience, okay? As a junkie and as an alcoholic. Until I faced the fact that Dave Price was a drug addict, a junkie, and an alcoholic, it didn't mean anything. A lot of people told me, many people didn't. Some people wanted me to stay, so what happens is what I'm saying, they're not going to change it themselves. But when you get to the Supreme Court, the point I wanted to make there, Brian, is this: you recognize your power. So, Justice Thomas is not gonna. He thinks he's a good guy. I think he's doing God's work. He thinks he's doing good. But these bought and sold. If you think Trump thought he had the votes, he didn't, right? And they can get pretty independent. Now, the days of probably flipping, and that did happen, where because there wasn't that big difference between liberal and conservative. There were some conservative judges they put on there who actually became not liberal, but certainly more liberal than they thought when they were put on the court. I remember we still have some options there too, Brian. You can. There's nothing. If you need to, you fight the battle to expand the court.
Can you do
right?
that with the 50 vote?
You can't do much of anything with the 50 vote. But again, even that, Brian, is not chiseled in stone. Okay, so a lot of it comes down to what Joe Biden and the administration can do between now and 2022. Let's look at Texas for an example. Okay. Yes. Evil
That's
Yoda.
true.
You're
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
I mean, that's true.
All the cases were Republicans.
At one point there was 3, and now I think they're up to 6. And in every case, I mean, they were so minor, but in every case it was a Republican. They don't have a Democrat. There's not a Democrat facing any kind of even allegation, let alone a charge going in. But let's look down in Texas, right? Now, one of the fears that people had that were career politicians, man, they didn't want celebrities to come in. And Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. Reagan won in part because he was an actor, in part because of the times. Donald Trump guaranteed 100%, even though I can't guarantee it. Had he not been on Celebrity or the Apprentice, the show, he wouldn't have been president. So movies are powerful, TV is powerful, and look who's talking about running for governor in Texas. Are you following that?
Yes. Well, are we talking about Matt McConaughey?
Yeah. Now, that's I mean, there's people who hate Matt McConaughey in his roles, but there's a lot of people. Because Americans, we're so much creatures, and not just Americans, the world now. We're so much creatures of we see and we believe, right?
Right.
We believed not so many Americans believed Donald Trump was a good businessman because he said he was, and he played one on TV, right? He was horrible at both, but we believed it, or enough people believed it. So if you get a McConaughey down there, Georgia. Now I'll tell you, it's a very effective lobby in Georgia. There are two. One is sports. Sports is big in Georgia. They're threatening to pull, saying we.
That's the thing that I think they really could do. Like I think,
well, they did. They did
the African American athletes say, we're going to play every football, and you'll have all white kids on your team, and we'll see how well the University of Georgia does.
Right, and North Carolina. Now, in North Carolina, they did that. Remember, they were going to have the transgender bathroom rule, and they pulled out some things that were coming, and that got changed. But the other lobby that is huge is the movie. Do you realize that every Marvel movie, right, which are now the world's biggest productions in terms of grosses, part of that is made in Georgia? There's nothing that says, that they won't use their power. And you look at it, again, it's cyclical. Athletes, nothing against Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was in the 80s, get your money and run. That's what he did. But that's not today. LeBron James is the best basketball player currently taking the court in America. And he's very outspoken. He, in turn, now there's another example. There are reports, and again, you don't know if it's fiction, fact, or made up. There are reports that he feels that maybe his calling after basketball is to run for governor or
Why not?
senator from
After
from uh, from,
look at all
from
the shit
Ohio.
that the
No,
Republicans,
from Ohio.
right? That'd be
So
great.
man, no, I mean, it would be pretty hard to vote against LeBron.
And isn't it
You
interesting
just
that 20 years ago people would say that you can't run a black person because you're going to lose the election. Now you have to win, and I think it's great.
well, I think well, that's true. We won't know how much uh, Kamala meant to Joe Biden, but I think it meant a lot. I think the personality of Joe Biden being the anti-Trump helped him the most. But I think having a woman, a woman who can be classified as black, and a woman who also has the advantage of being classified as Asian because of her mixture of her background, that was very formidable. So I guess what I'm trying to say, and I'm going about it a little round the way, is let's not, all of us, I'm putting myself with it. We just have to, again, we're right back when we started this show with Trump. We said, Brian, what can we do, not just you and I, but every can do to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't win? Now, I don't know what everybody did, but whatever we did, he didn't win. Now it's what can we do to stop these Republicans from taking over and making an America not the America that it should be, could be, would be, not the way it's spelled out, not anything. And what you're going to have is minority rule. Now, you can't have minority rule and have a country. You can't. The only way you can have is what you said, Brian. The only way you can have minority rule is a dictatorship. But the one reason, I'm not naive, the one reason I think it's more problematic in America than it is in some other countries for the takeover is we are so diverse, right? I would sooner see a Democratic, not what I said. I could see it. If you got the numbers, I could see a Democrat, becoming a dictator. I mean, that sounds foreign, but when using the term dictator is, you didn't get the votes, but you take over. I don't see that. I just think that I don't. I mean, you got to go through the court. I mean, there's all these things that are laying out there. I guess I'm saying. So yes, is it bad right now? Yes. Are they pulling all the strings right now? I just watched. I don't watch much sports anymore. I was consumed by it when I was a kid, but I just watched my alma mater lose to Baylor, and they were up at halftime. And I told Jude, I said they're not going to win. I mean, as much as I wanted them to, because realistically, Baylor was a better team, and they showed it. But at halftime, right? At halftime, Villanova was up by 7 and playing great basketball, and Baylor was awful. They were taking Baylor's game away. But you know what, Brian? We always play a second half, right?
Correct.
And if it's tied at the end, we play overtime. And so right now, I would say that we're in the opening moments of the battle for do we have Democratic votes, small d, or do we have something else? So the war's not over. The battles will continue, but there's the options. Economic, just what we named them: economic option, sports option, legal option. There's going to be no appealing to conscience. There's going to be no appealing to the better angels. If the Republicans had any better angels, they've buried them or they've replaced them with the devils. Mm-hmm. Anthony, I agree. The only thing, I mean, I agree with that. The only problem is, I think bashing someone kind of the American way, I guess, or something. What we should do is work with him. You know what I mean? If he has something good. Now, people are very upset about the border right now, and understand that. The border situation, though, is you need to look deeply into what happened down there. Again, it comes back to what Trump did and what Trump didn't do. But that's not an easy solution. I mean, my wife is, very liberal. And we were talking about the other night, and she said, "Yeah, she understands. We got to do something about the kids. We can't be cruel. We got to figure out. But you can't just have people come into the country. There has to be a screening process, especially now, not for terrorism or with the COVID. I mean, and strains. So, I mean, you can't just hi, come on in, right? So what we need to work out is a fair and equitable but most of all, humane situation of how do the walkers, and they are walking, right, and risk it all coming across. And they're not from Mexico so much now, Brian.
Right.
They're from
Guatemala and places like
Latin
that.
America now. You know, Mexico now, right now, is not too bad a place to live, right? Was it at one point? It wasn't so good. No, the Latin American countries. I've spent some time there, and they're not places unless you're on the side, right, of the power. It's not a place you want to live. So we have to figure that out. But that's not going to be done tonight or tomorrow.
Right. Dave, I wanted to just shift
Sure.
gears for a second because I've always been upset with this one person, and I believe you have too. And for the most part, people on Divide Withstand have it. I know Gary Peacock has cut her a break, and this is where I definitely disagree with Gary on this. I'm not saying he's wrong, but I am saying he's wrong.
Well,
Gary, if you're out
indirectly.
there, this was, as you know, Deborah Burks, and now she's come out saying that that it's obvious that we could have saved a lot more lives, and now she's coming out after the fact, and to me that's a real problem, because I think she's one person who's either trying to to save a spot in history for herself, or just maybe she just feels so guilty that she did something wrong. She knows what she did was wrong, and we know what she did was wrong. She was afraid of Trump. I get that. And Gary's I'm going to paraphrase how Gary felt about it, is that she was doing the best she could do given the situation. Essentially, that's what he was. I'm kind of
Right.
paraphrasing him,
Right.
but I don't buy that, because I think Fauci himself took risks that she didn't take, and he got in hot water for it. But I think she took an oath, the Hippocratic oath, and you and I have talked about that. Do no harm, and what she did was she did cause harm, and that comes before any fear. You have to go down with the ship when you're the captain, like the Titanic. So I really resent her. I saw her as somebody who was on the fence. I don't like people who hang on the fence, and she hung on the fence as long as she could. And she wanted to turn away when he mentioned sunlight or injecting some type of bleach. She was uncomfortable, but that wasn't enough, because she didn't. She should have just said, no, hold it. Can't say that. No, she couldn't do that. She just went, you don't do that. You don't do this. Anyway, I don't cut her a break, and maybe it's nice that she's saying this, but she's never going to have the respect of most people. Do you agree?
Well, we can't speak for most people. You can speak for you, and you just said
Right.
she doesn't get my respect, and I take it even a step further.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to canonize Fauci as a saint either. I'm sorry. I think he's brilliant. I think he. I don't know what else he could have done, right? But but I would just, if I had been caught up in that, I would have just said on national TV, Mr. Trump, you're fucked up. You're full of shit. You're lying, and I'm out of here. Now, that's me saying it, right? That's just Dave Price, nobody, and Dave Price, the way I've done it. And I mean, you don't need to justify that, but you worked with me, and I've done that before, right? And that's what I am. So that's my inclination to do, right? So I'm not, now, if they had said there is a valid reason for them to stay there, also you didn't want everybody to desert, right? I mean, if they felt, they were staying there to fight the fight inside the evil empire,
Right.
right?
Like was it Kelly said he did that?
There's that may be some truth, but the problem is,
But even that
unless
seems like they're protecting themselves,
well,
Dave. Does it not?
unless you left a letter, the day you decided to do that and had it verified, even then, yeah, it's just real hard. No, I mean, I think I mentioned on the other show, what disturbs me though, in all this, and it was an offhand remark, the new CDC director, who's I think she's really sharp, but I think she's going to be really good, said on one of the shows, and it wasn't really picked up. I'm getting a little tired of reporters not picking up on what they should pick up on. She said, it's not just that. We haven't had good records for 15 years. Well, stop, time out. How does the CDC not have had good records for 15 years? Right?
Right.
It's the same when Jon Stewart was exposing the horrible treatment that continues with veterans. Well, we haven't gotten around to putting that on computers yet. Stop, time out, why, and let's get it done. So, I think, and then the other thing, the other thing is, look, bureaucrats get knocked, um, but bureaucracy itself is it's slow, it's torturous. I'll give you one personal example. Okay, um, this week, one of our adopted son, I guess you could say, Jack is a playwright, and of course, there's no plays being produced right now. So he took a job with the IRS, and he's been there a couple months. And he said the other day, a woman came in, and the rule is that you're not to be admitted or helped by anyone in the office if you don't have an appointment, right? I mean, that's reasonable. You can't just have 500 people, million walk in, right?
Right.
But this woman, she was there. She was clearly disabled. You could clearly see she just needed like 5 minutes at a time. And Jack did what I thought was the right thing. He just said, "Screw the rules," and he just did it. Now, after his boss approved it, but he could have gone the other way. And my point is, whether you're Burks, Fauci, Jack, me, you, Joe Biden, doesn't matter who. At some point, you have to make a decisions that I stay or I go, or this is the one that pushes me over, or I can't stay, or I need, I can't fight the fight, anymore. And I have to say, we don't know how worse it could have been, but I'm going to say this about all the people who were opposed to Trump on the health crisis and stayed. It wasn't very good. You know what I mean? It just wasn't very good.
CDC.
Well, that was all. I mean, that guy he suckles at the teat of Donald Trump.
Right.
There's no question about
Yeah,
that.
there are a couple of those types. I mean,
the
the
doctor
doctor at the what, I forget which medical center it was.
Well, the
Walter
they're
Reed.
all they're all in hot water now, and of course, you make your choices. But well, it's going to be interesting. America always loves second chances. We're a pretty forgiving country. I don't know if it's going to happen this time. It's pretty hard to forgive. I'm not going to forgive them. Like I said, I'm not going to hate them. That's two thing. I'm not going to kill them. I'm just going to work against them. Not interested in them. Not human to me. Don't care what they say. If they come around to some kind of resemblance of, want to discuss something, that's fine. So, but I'm just one person. So, but that works for me. I really, it's interesting. I think a lot of people really believed in their families, and I understand this, or with their best friends, that when Trump was gone, it would end. They get their friends back, or they get their family back, and that's not happening. So that will be another long-term effect, Donald Trump brought to us. And again, I want to make it clear. I think it's very important that we understand this. Donald Trump did not cause this problem. In my way of thinking, it goes back, like I say, it started in 68 with Nixon and the Southern strategy and the people he assembled around him. It went into overdrive in the 80s with Ronald Reagan. Continued, we bounced back and forth and back and forth. But all this while, what Donald Trump did, and I think that's clear, 75 million Americans supported him. He did two things. He made unpopular opinions that you weren't supposed to say in public okay to stay in public, and then also to legislate them in public. And more than just not equally. I think that's its biggest sin. The other is take the outsiders who have no business being Americans, the Proud Boys, Klan, the Nazis, and suddenly say, oh yeah, they're good people. I mean, you said that, right? There's good people, bad people on both sides. No, there's not. There's never been and will never be a good Nazi. No. There's never been and there will never be a good Klansman. No. Right. There's never been and there will never be a good rowdy boy. No. There have been and there will continue to be good Republicans. Okay. There's a difference.
Right. Right. I was just showing
Oh yeah.
something with they said that the prosecutors are struggling with a consistent story in the January 6th cases. I would think that these kind of things are going to be an easy sell to the jury, but you just don't know.
Ah, contraire, my friend.
Right.
That's another thing that really disturbed me this week. Uh, Optimism, but disturbed. I don't know if you followed this story. It seems like a minor story, but it's kind of big. So I forget what I think he was up there. He was a Trump appointee and up in the Justice Department, right?
Right.
And he did an interview where he did one of the hugest no-nos that you can do.
He
Uh,
spilled the
he,
beans, right, or something. He said, well,
well, he talked about he believes these charges can lead to this, that, and the other, and this, and now there's only two options for what he did. One is, well, three actually. One is he wants to curry favor, right? Wasn't me, that kind of thing. But he didn't talk like that.
right.
The other is that he's, mentally challenged or stupid. I don't think you get to be an attorney being mentally challenged or stupid. So the one that comes to mind to me is the idea of poisoning the cases. And we've already seen judges now saying, I don't know that we can have a trial now.
Look at these motherfuckers. I mean, you just see them, and you know that these are
Well,
sick, crazy. These are the guys that you see, in the parking lot in their cars when you're going to get your groceries, and say, like, this person looks kind of dangerous here.
and see, the thing is, Brian, too, and that's why pretty soon I'll be getting in. We'll switch your little gears and go to guns. But this is what's really scary is, in too many states, these people, as they did that day, had guns. But you said something that I don't think we could ever underrate and underestimate early in the show. Just how lucky we were on January 6th.
Right.
When I say lucky, I'm talking about America. Now, maybe in one respect, uh, I mean, I don't want people to die. That's not what I want. But we had five people die, and it's as if no one died. Donald Trump just said that nobody was in any danger. Well, tell that to the dead people, okay? Tell that to the police. Tell that to the two policemen that committed suicide after. Just shut up and go away. But would it have been different if they had found and hung Pence?
Right. And they would
Would it have
have,
been
because it would
would
have
it
been
have
out of
been different?
control.
Would it have been different if they found and killed Nancy Pelosi? And the list goes on and on. Would it have been different if Officer Goodman didn't have the presence of mind to lead them
In that
away?
direction, right?
Right. I mean, that was just brilliant. And yet there were Republicans who didn't vote to give him the medal. Really? The most heroic act that I've seen on
Well, they're
national
afraid that
TV.
even doing that act
Well,
of doing the
I
decent
understand that.
thing.
Well, and again, though, Brian, I understand that. I mean, it's natural. You grew up with bullies, right?
We all, at least most normal young
Right.
males and
And
females,
and,
grew up with
and there's
bullies.
only two ways to deal with bullies: join them or oppose them. And the problem is, you can't join them because they're going to eventually, if they bullied everybody else, they're going to bully you.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, would it be scary? I'm going to, the threat. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill your family. I'm going to kill the people that you know. It's the same as I'm sure there are politicians in Washington who have deep, dark secrets that they don't want revealed. I'm going to reveal those secrets. Well, you know, that gives you too much damn control over people. Sometimes it's just better to say, come and get me. And a few House of Representatives said that. They probably, maybe some of them will retain their positions, but it'll be tough. Um, and as we said in other shows, and I think that's something we have to look not forward to. We have to. I do. I see the senators. They're not even good senators, okay, but the best of the horrible Republican senators. Five now, right? Not seeking reelection in 2022, and could go up to eight. They're saying.
Sounds
Well,
about right, Dave.
I don't really think you're going to get moderates in those seats. So that's not going to be a way to do it in states where you can't get a Democrat elected. I'm saying Idaho and those kinds of places. So we wait, we work, we see. So I would like to segue a little bit into something that was
Sure, Dave.
my cause celeb before this, and I'm going to return to it now, and it's also part and parcel. The joke is, and I almost have to say it, people said maybe we shouldn't go back to normal, right? After the pandemic is done. There was a lot of things. Yeah, there was a lot of things wrong. Well, I just find it interesting. We're in the first month of optimism, right, of the pandemic, probably, right? Would you agree? I mean,
Yes.
people, and so you see, like, and what returns to the headlines? Three major shootings in 10 days. Now, two are definitely attributed to the kinds of shootings that we fear, right? One directed certainly to in Atlanta, whether it was we know it's a sick individual, whether I want to blame the evangelical church for not allowing him to get the help that he obviously needed, because they actually, I mean, that's been proven. They said, no, go to our website because it's a God problem, not a psychological problem. Yeah, well, okay, whatever. You've got the anti-Asian sentiment
Right.
certainly expressed there. Then you move to the shooting in Colorado. Now, again, I'm going to say something. I'm not real sure the timing, but I believe it was the day after. But I'm pretty sure it was it. They had a gun law about couldn't buy a gun, and that was challenged in the courts, and the courts said that was illegal. And within days, the shooter had a gun, was purchased legally, and he does that. The one last night in Virginia Beach sounds like not your typical shooting. Uh, it appears to be, well, there were a lot of people shot. It appears to be a house party that went south, right? And I think that's the first thing I want to say about guns. They're not one problem, they're two. One is in the inner cities. Uh, that's one problem, okay? Uh, Brian, you've taught in the inner city schools. I've taught in the inner city schools. I used to tell the students in Bridgeton, they were fearful when they hear things. I said, you can never say never, but I don't see any crazed person coming in here and shooting up Bridgeton High School because it was a minority school. It's happened, I think, twice in American history, right? Where a minority school was done that way. Now, the difference is I taught, and I know for a fact, uh, former students of mine who would put their children to sleep in bathtubs at night for fear that bullets would come through the windows of their homes, right? So, I mean, it's a real problem there, but that's one problem. And then you've got these crazy white people disgruntled, having a bad day. So, I want to do two things tonight in this battle, which I hope people will join me in. Certainly people are far ahead of me doing this, but before the pandemic, was pretty active in working against the NRA down here. So I want to return to that. So for anybody out there who isn't familiar with the actual wording of the Second Amendment, I want to read it and I want to point out three things about it tonight. We'll go into greater depth over the weeks to come, but right now. So I don't usually read, but pardon me, I will here just to make sure I get it right. I think I have it memorized, but I don't. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed. Now, I'm not a legal expert, but I consider myself fairly knowledgeable in the use of words since I've been a teacher and a writer. Well, I guess you could say since I left college, which was a long time ago. So let's start there. What's the third word in the Second Amendment? Well, here it is, a well-regulated. Now, they don't use a hyphen there, but they should, because when you use that creates what they call an adjectival phrase. So it's well respected. I mean, I said well regulated. So it doesn't just say a regulated, right? It says a well regulated. So automatically you're allowed in that to have regulations. Now, the fourth word is a militia. There is a school of thought, and we're not going to go into that in great depth tonight. But once you no longer had any semblance of the militia, which you do not now, that would make the Second Amendment null and void because it's speaking solely of a militia. Now, it says being necessary for the security of a free state. Now, people read that as states. Now, they're talking about really a free nation. Remember, at that time, we didn't have a nation, right? We were putting it together, meaning a free state like a free country. Okay. The right of the people to keep and bear arms. So it doesn't say the right of the people to keep arms, right? It says the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Now, you can go for 5 million interpretations of bear, but there's only one that sticks. Bear arms is a military term. You don't bear arms when you go hunting. You don't. Okay. You bear arms if you're military, shall not be infringed. Okay. So somebody raised their hand and says, but Dave, the Supreme Court doesn't agree with you. Au contraire, my friends. First of all, the Supreme Court is not infallible. The Pope is not infallible. It was a 5-4 vote. The vote was on a gun case from Washington, D.C., the Heller case. And I almost agree. D.C. had, you could have a gun, you could have ammunition, but you couldn't have a loaded gun. Okay. So when somebody breaks into your home, pardon me, wait a minute, whoa, I got to load my gun, right? Come on. And secondly, the person who wrote the opinion, and when you write the opinion, that's kind of the court says that, the 5 on that side say you're the best to do this particular one, was Judge Anthony Scalia. And on 2 separate occasions, just by the fortunate accident of living in Washington, D.C., I was able to be in the presence of Judge Scalia when he discussed this. And Brian, these were his exact words. He said, of course you can have regulations. We only ruled on this case. Have you ever seen that anywhere? Has the NRA ever said that? They have not, because the NRA cherry picked. Mm-hmm. And they did that. Now, tonight, the other thing I want to do is say they're not unique with me. They're not new to me. I mean, I put them in 6 recommendations, and I'm not saying you stop here, but listen to them, Brian. See if you think they're reasonable. If you think they're realistic. But most importantly, do you think they might cut down on what we're seeing? Now, I always start this way on this argument. I talk about guns. I love every part of my body. I really do. But if somebody said you got to cut off your foot to save the rest of your body, I'll sacrifice my foot, right? So this idea of not doing anything about guns is just stupid, okay? We're losing too many Americans. You could go back to the Constitution, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I can say that guns take away my life or have the threat. They certainly can take away my happiness. So you've got that idea of 2 rights conflicting, what do you do? But here are the 6 things, not in any particular order, just as they came to me. So first and foremost in this list, reinstate the ban on assault weapons. Check out, I'm not going to give you those statistics, anyone, but check out the difference when we had the assault ban and after we let it expire. And we've had it before. So this is nothing new. We're returning to it, right? Those bear arms right there. Yes. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with those bear arms, but not the other. Background checks before purchasing a weapon. You can't get Sudafed, right? It limits it. Viagra, people say, no, I mean, there's limits on everything, certainly driving. So just a background check. Are you somebody that should have a gun? You do that with everything else. Why are guns exempt? Close the gun show and private sales loopholes. That's unbelievable because the private sales, they're done under the table. The gun shows, you can walk in, nothing's done. I agree with that. No, weapons should be taken away. The right to have a weapon should be taken away for those with a history of mental illness or domestic violence. They've done studies, again, look them up. How many women, primarily, but some men too, are killed in domestic violence incidents by guns, and how there was a clear pattern of that escalating. The guns were in the home. I think that just goes. And fifth, and maybe the most important of all, and this was shocking to me when I first learned it. Do you know that the CDC is not allowed to study the causes of gun violence and issue recommendations? They're prohibited by that, by law. Now, are you gonna sit there and tell me that that's not a health issue? Of course it is. So I'll be speaking more on that. This is kind of the introduction. It's one of the causes. And guess who I blame for that, Brian? The Republican Party.
Right. It's just them.
It's just there. Okay. Now, some of the jokes that have been made are pretty funny. Chris Rock, very humorous gentleman, very funny gentleman, did a really cool, kind of sounds ridiculous, but true. He said, "You want to cut down on killings?" He said, "No, don't worry about the weapons. Make a bullet, charge $10,000 a bullet." And he said, "Man, you got to really want to kill some motherfucker to spend $10,000 on him."
Right.
Which is, I mean, this guy, it's ludicrous, but it's true. I mean, there are things you could do that way, right? Or do exactly, again, history bears this out. California in the 60s was going through, the periods like we are now. And they they were into open kind of guns. And the Black Panther Party, which is one of the most misunderstood and what would you say?
Maligned.
I don't know. Yeah, maligned is a good word. Groups who, yes, they did bad things. Don't get me wrong, killing's bad, but they did a lot of good too. But the idea was they appeared on the state capitol steps with guns. And within that next week, California was making restrictions, on the holding of guns. So, and then you got the gun collectors. I don't care if you collect 1,000,000 guns. I mean, that's fine. I don't know why you'd want them. But I still think you should still, and nobody's going to come take your guns now, unless you fall under those categories. If we make categories that you shouldn't have guns, then yeah, we should come, and take them away. Like if you are if you have guns and it's decided that if you are mentally ill, you can't have them, we should take them away. If you have guns and you cause, or not just accused, but convicted or found guilty of or plead guilty to domestic violence, and the regulations you shouldn't have, we should do that. Now, that I understand that doesn't necessarily do a whole lot with the problem of guns in the inner cities, right? And there, I think we need to look at the, I hate this term. God, I hate it, but I'm going to use it. The root causes. And they are much different. They are things, again, that the Republican Party puts. Poverty, ignorance, lack of economic opportunity, things that. I think you need people say you need both. You need counseling or the social act. You do, and you need restrictions. So I'm going to say tonight, quite civilly, that fuck the NRA, fuck any Republican who supports this stance. This is the "you are fucked and I'm not interested in you" stance. I won't even talk about regulations. It's wrong. It's wrong under the amendment to the Constitution, and it's wrong. The person who wrote the ruling that is used by the NRA that they cherry pick from said, and I was twice in my presence, and I'm not with the only person there. I mean, we're having some private discussion. Said he's on record as saying, "Of course you can have regulations. It's just a question of the regulations must fall under, reasonable guidelines." That's all.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dave, you want to go to some comments here?
Oh, absolutely. That's we've been talking a lot tonight. God, I bore myself.
We did have some other ones, and I probably should have favorited them. But I remember, I don't know if it was Rare Medium was mentioning that he thought that perhaps, if we're going back to this idea of what's happening at the border, that maybe we should have our own, like the European Union has its own union. Maybe if we had, just open borders as far as working and movement. And it dawned on me, that might not be a bad idea. So they're not
certainly
necessarily living here; they could work or whatever. I mean, I don't know how that works out. Is that so?
No, I think that's. I think all when I say that, the people say that, oh, anything's on the table, and with the Republicans, no, it's not, right? I mean, the Democrats do it too. I mean, no, I think that would be something. I haven't thought about it, and I love when somebody thinks.
Who do you think would benefit the most from something like that? I mean, the United States is in the middle, so I don't know if that helps because you have people coming, passing through to get to either Mexico or to Canada.
Well, it all depends.
Makes the Mississippi kind of really important.
Well, what happens is, I mean, I think you know, okay, maybe this is too high level even for me to think, but I've been thinking a lot about it. Okay. Uh, for ever since my beginnings of time, people talked about the fear of this one world control and, the Jewish cabal and all that, right? Well, whether you believe in that or not, we are one world now. The pandemic proves that. The economy proves that. So I think we better start thinking more in terms of not our individualism, right? As a country or as a person, and more about the collective. Not because it's the right thing to do, not because Jesus preached it on some Sermon on the Mount, if indeed Jesus is real, but the mere fact it's self preservation, Brian. So I think, if Mexico does better, and that means if Mexicans do better, not the country, we're in better shape, right? I mean, you're going to have that. Um,
But how, this will get into some of the other people there, like human, because I still must go back to this idea of climate change. And I think maybe we're saying, well, look at what's going on with the drug war down there. And that is really the biggest reason why they're coming up. But there's also a climatic effect of the
oh,
unsustainability of life in Central America, because that's, you have these deserts as you move up.
mm,
The climate change is going to force. But here's the thing: I think that's more for Canada to worry about. I mean, we're talking 30 or 40 years, obviously, but as you go along, it gets greater and greater. That a European Union for the United States might not be feasible, only because I think Canada will be the one country that they could see in the future, say, you know what, they're all going to come up here, and well, we'll have a lot of
well,
people now want the same problems.
unless the ice flow comes from the north,
Well,
the
that
border.
and
Yeah.
Guy
Well,
McPherson has said it would be, we could survive another ice age, because plants, in the subtropics, you can still do fine.
right,
You
right.
can't survive anything above 104 degrees. You're just not going to have
No, no.
photosynthesis.
Well, and that, look, I know, guns are one of my areas. Environment is one of yours. It doesn't mean you're not interested in guns. It doesn't mean I'm not interested in the environment. I think, though, again, that's something we have to look at. Uh, Again, I'm not an economist. I'm not an industrialist. I'm trying to convince Jeff Bezos, who has his first office three buildings from mine, that he should just be my friend and give me money. That hasn't worked out real well. So I don't know anything about high finance,
Right.
but it stands to reason. It makes sense. Is I don't see how you make less money using oil and gas than you do with instituting. Now, I'm not saying in the long run running, but instituting clean
Right. Clean energy. I mean,
energy
that's what,
sources.
I
Now,
mean,
so look, I
Biden's
mean,
saying this.
well, I mean, it just stands with reason. So what happens is the oil companies, right, will lose money unless they're probably who's who. They can position themselves, right, to
Hmm.
be, Exxon can be the world's leader in clean energy
Right.
if they choose to. But again, they don't want to, they don't want to give up their position. So this idea that, we can't have a booming economy, at least initially, I'm sure you're going to see that in the infrastructure bill that'll be proposed. Whether there's, and then you've got the arguments, well, should you rebuild the roads? Well, yeah, well, in many ways, again, um, America, the traveling West, we want our cars. I have no idea why people drive into Washington D.C. If you're not an Uber driver or a taxi cab driver, the metro is wonderful. And when you're a senior citizen like I am, I can go anywhere from Virginia on the metro to Maryland where it runs for $1.25. I can't drive my car for that, right? Let alone the
And
parking.
who would want
So,
to drive in Manhattan? I mean,
well,
you'd rather get a bike.
well, yeah, actually, that's funny you should say that. Yeah, you don't move in Manhattan,
I've
but
done that,
Manhattan's.
by the way.
Oh no, I've done it not hundreds, but yeah, hundreds of times. Manhattan is actually an easier city to drive in than Boston or Washington, but it has more cars, so it can take you, a half hour to go 3 blocks, that
Right.
kind of thing. But as far as direction, because it's all cross streets and straight streets, we don't have that in other places. So Europe has done a better job of transportation in terms of encouraging trains. Americans really don't use trains much, except we're going to go out and go through the Rockies. Uh, but there's nothing to say that you can't give incentives to do that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you go about doing it, but you could be done. I mean, I think anything can be done within reason. So, but you have to perceive the threat. And I've said to you, Brian, and I've said to others, the problem with the environment is it's always going to be tomorrow, and people don't really. We're not good long range planners. We want it right now, and this is not. This is not. Again, I certainly fear. I mean, we certainly have the ability to bomb the world back into the Stone Age, right?
Right.
But I think that the two biggest, catastrophes, whether they're earth ending or not, environment is one, and the other is some form of pandemic far worse than we just had. And that's also related to the environment, because as you close off the areas where things can be. So yeah, what else we got out there? What
Well,
else?
here's a delicate one. This goes way back at the beginning of the show.
I like
but I like this
ones.
one because this one, we have addressed. It says even if Trump didn't cower and went for the coup, the capitalist ruling class would still be in charge. Now, it's like saying the rich people are in charge.
Well, they are.
There's truth to it. There's truth
to it. Absolutely true.
Right. But there's the benevolent rich people and there's malevolent rich people, and they struggle. They struggle with each other.
No, they fruggle. That's a good one.
It's like having a benevolent dictator. We just don't see it. At least in a long time we haven't. So that kind of point that he's making, there is truth in it, but it also tends to make me feel that Evil Yoda's saying that it's almost like the cabal, like they're going to work against us, and the bottom line is, if it's good for you, it's got to be good to you, or if it's good to you, it's got to be good for you. And I don't necessarily have a problem if somebody is wealthy or if there is capitalism, if it were fair. That's
see, it's everybody's definition of fair, Brian.
Right, you have to play a fair game, no matter what.
Well, let's take my hopefully good friend someday, Jeff Bezos. Okay, I have a feeling, just a feeling, that he didn't do too much bad to get his money. I'm not saying he's a good person, right? I'm just saying he had an idea. Times favored. The pandemic made him, skyrocket up. He got a lot of help.
And some things get I don't say out of control. I mean, there was a point. I mean, for example, you could sell something, from your apartment, and all of a sudden, you've seen commercials like this. You start a business, and all of a sudden, you get 20,000 sales. You say, "How am I going to distribute that?"
What I fault more than Bezos, and I don't know enough about him as a person, but obviously, I think our tax structure needs to be reexamined. I don't buy the argument that I've heard from people. Well, Bezos created a lot of jobs. Okay, let's look at the jobs he created. Yes, some of them are very good paying jobs, but those people would have found jobs somewhere else. The jobs they're talking about creating are in his warehouses, right? Because he
was paying them. Look. We know that that work is horrible. He should do more. There's no doubt.
Right.
But if we keep pointing it at Bezos, there's so many that need to be pointed, and even the local guy down your street who will only pay you $7.25 an hour. Well, that guy's just as bad. It's just that he doesn't.
Well, I think what we see too is if you look at, I'm not good at this, but you look at the balanced dollars, back, and you haven't had, well, obviously at one point minimum wage you could live on, pretty much, right? Can't do it today. $15 you can't live on.
Let me illustrate this for a second.
Go on.
Okay, when I was 14 years of age, I had a lawn business, and I would cut around 8 or 9 lawns with my friend a week, maybe a little bit more. And we were making some money. At the time, we were charging like $6 or $7. Well, some lady on the street, she was really, really kind of batty. So, she was like trying to push us down in price. And her husband actually hung himself in the basement. So you can already tell that there's something really wrong with the family. But we made an agreement that we would cut her lawn for $6.50. She kept pushing us down, but that was no lower. She said, "Fine, come by tomorrow and cut the lawn." Next day, we get ready, and all of a sudden, we see this kid, Huck, who's from Canada. And we said, "What are you doing, Huck?" He's ready to cut her lawn. He says, "Yeah." She said, We can do it for 625. So she did the no. She made a deal with us,
Right.
and she went back, and then she did it for the 25 cents, which was really, and he was stupid enough to do it, and I really hated that lady for it. But now that is just a simple example of, she's not Jeff Bezos. She's like the lady 4 houses down on the street, and she's a piece of shit. And
Well,
it's not just the wealthy that are pieces of shit. There are people down the street who do it. If she had had billions of dollars, we really would have been, in trouble. So I'm very careful about judging. Some people become rich and they almost can't help it. The one who wins the lottery.
well, I think what I would say, and nobody's necessarily going to agree with me, but that's fine. I don't know where and I don't know what, but I believe these two things to be true. It's almost impossible for human beings to govern other human beings and do it correctly, whether it's church, whether it's government. There's always going to be, it seems that there's always going to be winners and losers and inners and outers and this kind of thing. Uh, so there's that. And then the second thing is America, and I can't speak to other countries because I've only traveled there. I've never lived in another country. We seem to really judge people so much by how much they make. And so when that becomes real for them, it's like never enough, right? Or, I want to, we compare, wait a minute, he's getting, I should, and all this. And I'll be honest, I mean, I don't see that. Now, look, as I've said before, I was born upper middle class, and barring something unforeseen, I will die upper middle class. Not because I've moved up. I mean, I've kind of stayed where I am, but everybody else has moved down so much, right?
Right.
So I'm certainly not. But I mean, we're set, barring anything unforeseen. So maybe I'm not the best judge of this, because somebody could say, well, you've never been threatened economically with anything, and I haven't been. But the idea of it is, I really don't think, the economic things aren't what's important. If we didn't learn that from the pandemic, we didn't learn much, and we don't, unfortunately. Talking today, went for the first time. Judy and I went for the first time to eat in Washington, D.C. since last February, and it was at my favorite restaurant. And I'll give a shout out to it, because I'll tell you what, this is an example of a restaurant that's doing great social work. It's called Immigrant Food. What they're doing is they did it two great things in my estimation. They opened up free space for any immigrant organization to come there and meet. They work with them. They provide legal counsel for them. And secondly, they opened it exactly one block from the White House when Trump was there, just putting his nose right in it. So it's a good place to go. And what I had been there, and one of the waitresses came, and she said, "I'm so glad you're back." And I said, I said to her, I'm looking at her, I'm thinking like, okay, here's a person who they're really what's important. She doesn't make a lot of money, probably, right? But there's good. I just wish there was a way, and that's naive and that's idealistic, and I know all that, but just where people could feel good. Okay, here's what I'm going to say. I'm not saying it very well. Could feel good about things they do that don't involve having a whole lot of money, and feel bad if they have a lot of money and other people don't. And we don't have that system right now. Now, is that? But again, I would ask Evil Yoda or anyone the same question I always ask. Okay, let's say I agree with you. The system doesn't work. How do we improve it? And if we figure we can't improve it, what do we put in its place? So it's the same with all these
Right. I mean, you
questions
have
to
to
me.
have an alternative. Like you
Yeah,
mentioned about the candidates. If you're going to say that you're not going to vote for Biden, you want the where's your alternative? Who can win against this guy?
yeah. Labor suffrage should be democratic, not owned by a capitalist king. Can't argue with that. It seems to be now some things. Again, I'm not well versed. It's one of my, I can spend money. I don't understand the economy, but I mean, I've run across some things. I'm actually putting together a program. Hopefully, I have the meeting with the Smithsonian. I'll be back with them as soon as they're ready to open up again. But looking at why, how the Grateful Dead and their fans have come up with a very viable economic system, which they have. It involves bartering and things like that. Of course, it's a small closed group with a shared, kind of a shared value system. But I don't know. I mean, I keep coming back, and I'm going to break my own rule. So I can't use one thing to judge another. But I keep coming back to the Occupy movement. We owe them a great debt too. They're the ones that really got the idea of the 1% into the vernacular. They're the idea when no one else was protesting, they were protesting. And but the problem was they believed that you could kind of have a democracy in terms of you know running things, and it's pretty hard to do that. So again, when you say evil capitalism, yeah, certainly it's. I don't know if it's inherently evil. I think what it does, though, it certainly promotes, promulgates, and makes opportunity to bring out the greedy side of people. Uh, One of the things I would do, maybe, I don't know if it would work. Uh, I've never believed that colleges and universities should be places where you train for jobs. I've never believed that. So I think, if you're going to be anything in the science or math area, and I don't mean to write research papers and do all the shit that you do in English, but read some other things to understand, about humanism and, read Vonnegut, to his ideas about, how machines, misplaced, or, if you're going to be a scientist, what are the possibilities that artificial intelligence can go wrong, and will I'll be Bach become our future? So maybe, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things we could change, but it'll still be a slow process. But hey, I can't argue with anybody. Certainly, America isn't working well right now. So I think, again, everything's on the table. Let's look at what it is. Let's see what it is. But right now, politically, I feel we're in a much better position with our current president than I was with our former president.
And he's got an
And
army.
I said all along that it was, I don't want to rely on it, but the courts came through in that. What didn't come through, what is clearly broken, is the legislative branch. That is clearly broken. And, I really think they're going to have to. I mean, I don't see why we get rid of it tomorrow, the filibuster. But there's some people who want to hold on. People are looking at Manchin now. Look,
Yeah, he's got the leverage.
well, look, he's a Democrat in a Republican state.
I mean, I'm just waiting for him to switch parties. When he does that, it's like the Van Drew thing.
I don't think he will. Well, you don't know. Okay, yeah, it may be forced to do that, but from whatever. But the idea of it is,
if he did, then that might help progressives, because say, look, we have to elect progressives at the senatorial
elect a progressive in West Virginia. Tell me how the hell you're going to do that. You're going to have to change. You're going to have to change a generational mindset. Now, do you realize that once upon a time, not that long ago,
vaccinations.
They don't want the vaccinations.
Good,
right?
Good.
Yeah, but it doesn't work that way, Brian.
No, it doesn't.
Now the idea was, I mean, West Virginia was solidly Democratic. West Virginia was probably the state that actually propelled JFK to the presidency. And again, evil Yoda. I like what you say. Here's another thing I think we have to combat. Somehow, Brian, and this is a huge challenge, we have made socialism and communism the fuck words of isms, right? And yet we have a group of Americans who seem to be very willing to go with authoritarianism and fascism. And I would take communism and socialism any day of the week over authoritarianism or fascism. That we're right back to the Republicans. I mean, I'm not, I'll put all the blame. I mean, we have to figure out how the hell. First steps, eliminate them, or eliminate the power, or whatever we do, and then make the Democratic Party more progressive than it is now. That's my prescription.
Maybe
now
do propaganda and put subliminal seduction there.
Well,
that's how Stormy Daniels got you, right? Like every 8th frame they had a picture of her.
No. When Stormy Daniels got me when she sat on my lap.
Oh, that's right. The actual contact did it.
I told her I loved her, and she said, "Of course you do," and that was kind of the end of that. But well, let's look at that. All right,
okay.
Not that
the propaganda part of it.
Okay,
I mean, how can you
think about this?
You have to manipulate these people in some way.
You could go to some evangelicals who would swear that Stormy Daniels is a spawn of Satan leading you to sin. And yet we'll look at Trump as Jesus Christ on earth. How the hell do you get through that? Again, we've made sex into this dirty, horrible thing, and we can blame the Puritans somewhat for that. And don't anybody dare tell me that the founding fathers, first of all, don't tell me they were religious, and secondly, don't tell me they were pure. Benjamin Franklin tried to screw every French woman who would have him, and every American.
True.
He had venereal disease,
and he was not a good-looking dude either.
Thomas Jefferson. A lot of people. I mean, again, we don't know, but this seems true. When his wife died, she said, "Don't you ever get married again," and he didn't. But he certainly took Sally Hemings as his wife in all terms, but wifehood, and that's DNA proof. So we're not speculating on that. But because we have this very different, the Europeans have a much better. Now, not the Orientals so much, but European culture has a much better handle on the idea of sex. It's not dirty, it's not filthy, it's not obscene until it causes problems for you or those around you, right? So certainly the person, the young man, the 21-year-old in Atlanta, it was certainly a problem for him. It was a problem for those that he killed. For women who have no other option, it's a way to make money, a quick way. Does that make them evil? No. Again, we're back to economics. But no. So, and who leads that fight?
I'm thinking this kind of. Let's look at this. This is, folks, don't think less of me for this. First of all, I'm going to see if my volume's on. Can you hear me, Dave? Dave, we good? Hold on, Dave, you're good. You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm gonna. This was Candy Barr, who actually was with Jack Ruby, but you try to imagine this devil guy being these people from West Virginia, and you do something along this line here. You give me ideas here with these people. These are the males. Get to see a movie tonight.
Brings you the Walt Disney Show. This week we take a journey into the real-life adventure world. Our story tonight is called The Camel Who Lost Its Hump. Your host, Walt Disney, will be here to narrate our story after this word from our sponsor. Have you ever had a candy bar? Once you remove the wrapper, you'll know it's like nothing you've ever had before. Watch.
Well, let me go back to here, Dave. You get the idea there. You get the idea there. That if these people are that, stupid and easily manipulated, why not get somebody who's, got like a mentality like mine? Say, okay, these, let's get it. If they're going to, take Trump hook, line, and sinker, why can't we do it too to them? And then meanwhile, we'll play it smart with the other ones. I don't know how you do it. But they are, look, there's one thing you can say, Dave, they can be manipulated and very easily.
Well, here's the thing. You talk about manipulation. Walt Disney, who, didn't make an appearance there, but was mentioned. Walt Disney was got people manipulated all kinds of ways. Do you know what Walt Disney was politically?
You know what? That's a good question. Well, I know he was horrible with his unions. He didn't pay them much at all. He was like one of the worst.
He was an American Nazi.
Really?
Along with Henry Ford. I
knew he was
not
Henry Ford was an anti-Semite. We know that.
Well, so was Walt Disney. Huge anti-Semite. So I shouldn't say Nazi. That gives other. But I mean, yes, he was. So, but what was he able to do? Uncle Walter, right? It was that way. And, I just wish people sometimes, and this is naive on my part too, but I wish they would understand there's a difference between the character that people portray and the person that they are. Well, I want one. I've won a candy bar in a long time. Now, Brian, my only question to you is, I certainly admit, like I said, to my affairs with Stormy Daniels. Why the hell do you watch those? You're always watching those really old things. Are you like reincarnated
No, I just something
from?
about that, you know. It's just kind of I know I'm into, as you know, I'm into videography and
Oh yeah, you
old
always watch
films
it.
and things like that. And you know, that site somethingweird.com, I have a fascination with it. I mean, I'm not it's not a fetish, it's just a fascination with it. And the whole thing with
And
Candy
you
Barr
know,
too. I mean, she was very close with Jack Ruby. I mean, they're married, in fact, I think. They were married.
well, Jack ran a whole stripper
Jack
empire.
Ruby was really messed up, and Candy Barr wasn't all that
Well,
there. She,
let's blame
physically, but not mentally. You
let's
know?
let's blame Jack Ruby for his role, which he does have his big role in nobody accepting the truth today. If you really go back, probably the big movement, right, in the modern era has been the conspiracies of the Kennedy assassination. It makes no sense, okay? Um, and so everybody's looking for an answer and why did this happen, and and this kind of thing. And of course, Jack Ruby ended any chance of Lee Harvey Oswald
Yeah.
if he would even tell the
And even
truth.
how he shot him, you know, it was like Lenny Bruce made a joke of it. You know, like he said, you know, like a typical guy, a Jewish guy from up north holding the gun, like I'm gonna get you here, and
Yeah.
he wasn't even holding
Well,
it wrong, right? You know,
and then people say, well, how to get in? Well, he what he did. Uh, not, I mean, he wasn't planning this for decades, but
but
how
he
he
had
was able to get.
ins in the
Well,
city, you
because
know.
you know why? Because he treated the cops to his clubs. He was a big mover in Dallas, right? And he was. I don't know if he was mobbed up. I mean, Donald Trump. Well, didn't Donald Trump say that who Ted Cruz's dad killed Kennedy or
Right.
something? Um, it's. But I think again, I'm going to say
He
America.
insulted his father. He insulted his wife, and he does nothing. What a
Ted Cruz.
candy
Was it
ass.
you? Was you
Candy
that was
ass, not
it
candy
you that
bar.
said it was you that said he needed the beard to like cover up his chin,
Yeah, yeah,
wasn't it
because it's obvious that
you?
you know, he had
Nah,
this,
I just
he
a
had a
fool.
Jay Leno chin, except it was even worse. He had like this,
And you want to know something? I'm going to say that he will not win re-election in
not fairly at least.
not even. I don't even think there's enough cheating to get Ted Cruz back. Um, but when you look at America's inherent flaws coming in, the question is, can it survive? It practiced genocide, right? It wiped out what it could of the population that was here. Uh, it was born, survived, and compromised by slavery. And it had this stupid Puritan idea of sex being evil. Um, and again, I don't feel any empathy per se for the young man who killed the 8 in Atlanta, because once you become a killer, uh, I can you should be studied, but not. But it's pretty clear if somebody says, which people that know him said, if somebody says masturbation is a sin, and you like to masturbate, you've got a pretty big complex there. And if I'm sure if they get into his insight, it'll be you see people like that who make some real distinctions. Bill Clinton did it. I did not have sex with that woman. Well, you did. She blew you. Okay, that's sex. I mean, come on. But my point is, he may well have believed that in a certain way. I don't think he did, but the idea that sexually, I mean, they're all sexual acts, right? So what this gentleman apparently did, I use the term loosely, what this kid did, as a kid, uh, you know, frequented these places and then had a hate relationship with himself. The church did not help him because they said, they sent him to, well, they actually sent him to a facility that does deal. I'm actually want to go down and write a story. Maybe I'll commit myself. Uh, where they work with two groups: those who are have the sin of pornography or sexual perversions, and the sin of being
But I
gay.
understand if he had sexual problems. I mean, go feed it. I mean, have 8 of them at one time. You know, that's
But
good.
but
You know,
but
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 just
but
why
but, but
choice?
Brian,
You know,
because what happens is you've got these people in your ear telling you that what is normal and natural is a sin, right? Now that doesn't mean all sex is,
Well, he should,
is
even from
normal.
a scientific standpoint.
Oh,
If
come
you
on, they don't even believe. They
No,
don't
no,
even
I'm
believe
saying,
in science.
I mean, even there's some evidence that if you don't, whatever, 21 times, a month, you could, develop prostate cancer, those kind of things. I mean, there's legitimate reasons why
Look,
people should be doing things like that. But the point is, this guy is violent, and it was directed toward one group of people. The man,
absolutely,
and let's not even
Mike.
joke about it. The
Well, I'm
problem is that
not,
they don't want you doing that, and they don't want you
well,
having,
because
you
they
know.
want to. I said, don't. Who's the they? Whether the power structure is the church, and when I say the church, I mean not. Again, you'll never get me to say that all Christians are bad. They are not. You'll never get me to say that all churches are bad. But I will say this: a church is only as good or bad as its leader
By the way,
at all levels.
Sandy just came back. You might want to tune out because it's getting a little bit
Well,
um
dirty. No,
it's getting a little weird
no,
tonight.
no. But the
Not
idea
weird.
of
It's
it,
just we're trying to get to
well,
a
no,
point.
because you're back at the Republicans. All right.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to give you a statement, Brian. Congressman said brothels lead to sin and must be eliminated. Is that Congressman Democratic or Republican?
Republican.
Right. Okay. Uh, Homosexuality is a sin against man, nature, and God.
Republicans.
Senator found with 13-year-olds giving him oral sex in his
Republicans.
office. There you are.
Right.
Okay.
They
Now
ignore
that
what they
doesn't.
defend. Right.
Now I got Wiener showing
Right.
his wiener. I've got Bill Clinton, receiving oral sex. I mean, I'm not saying they don't, right? But I think uh, it's and that's not what's bad. What's bad is the lie.
Right.
What's
The line.
bad? What's bad is selling yourself. Roy Cohn, who was Donald Trump's father in all but birthing
I think that's the
him.
problem. That's kind of like what Lenny Bruce said. I mean, the people have sexual hang-ups, and then that creates so many. If you just be a natural person, just do what comes naturally, you wouldn't have half these problems. But the church has always tried to do this
Right.
thing, and the opposite is the good thing. It's just.
Well, I mean, you get back to the original biblical story of Adam and Eve, and of course, the Freudian interpretation is that the snake was the sex organ, and they had carnal knowledge of one another. I don't know what that was, but the idea of it is, and then the second problem with sex, and it's just not in America; it's everywhere, is the fact of the mistreatment of women. And when I mean mistreatment, I mean the machoistic kind of thing. Now, let's this is not politics, but it's related to it a little bit. The young quarterback, Watson, who had the world
Sean
by the
Watson,
tail.
is it? Sean
Yeah,
Watson?
yeah, Deshaun. And now a woman came forward, and then another woman, and now I think he's up to 25. And most all of us say, well, that's an awful lot of women for it not to be true. And knowing the power of the fact that this kid, I'm sure, because he's one of the best athletes out there, has been pampered and babied. I will guarantee you this, that he visited schools, and I don't speak of this as myth. I know, because my son has taught at such schools and actually talked to the girls who are part of that. A lot of the recruiting is done through sexual terms. If you come to certain universities.
Can I interrupt? Because I had to do some translating. I'm not going to get into the person who did, but it was someone in the NHL, and this goes back to 1990.
Oh, wait a minute. I want to comment to Gary along the show. Wide awake watching hoops turned into, and I found myself falling asleep. Gary, you're not improperly touching yourself, are you? I'm worried that you would be doing that in your sleep, and I don't want that to happen. I don't want you to go to hell, Gary. Go ahead.
All right. So this guy was telling me the stories of a certain star, and it was literally when he would be on the road. And I'm just about the star. I'm not talking about this person himself. He had his own whatever, and I don't want to say who it is or anything like that. But they said that every night he was at a hotel, they would have at least a line of 5 or 6 women that would knock at his door.
Oh,
and this is
absolutely.
what happens to these athletes. Now, I'm not saying what Deshaun Watson did was what he said, what they say he did. I don't know. I'm just saying that it just seems kind of peculiar to me anyway, because it's always thrown at it, unless this guy's sick, and it's just a possibility too.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, I think it could be created in those. The other thing that I find interesting, and I'm not I'm just throwing it out there. I find it interesting, and this is directed to our good friends here, like Evil Yoda and my, human love, solidarity, or whatever, this is, that are, I think they're on the right thing. Is power there. I find it interesting. I'm not saying anything. I'm just bringing up the point. When do all these things surface? When he gets the power over the team that wants to basically, dictate. It's a form of slavery. It really is. Now, it's a lot different. I mean, certainly the slaves got paid, nothing got beat. But I mean, the idea of, they want to hold your future and that kind of stuff. So could they put somebody? I mean, you don't know. You don't know. But before we make heroes and villains, let's go back to Mr. Kennedy. We mentioned him earlier. On record as saying, and followed through on it. He said, let's just say what he said. He said, if I don't get some strange every day, I get violent headaches. And he believed that to be true. And he had two secretaries, this is not made up, called Fiddle and Faddle. And they were there. Their sole reason for being there, I mean, they did some note taking, was on the days that Mr. Kennedy couldn't find his release anywhere. They were there to help him with that. Now, the thing about John Kennedy, he never talked about personal morality, did he?
Not that I know of.
No, he talked about government, do what you can't do all this. Martin Luther King had affairs out the yin, never talked about personal morality, talked about social morality. They're two different things. Bill Clinton never really talked about, Now, does that mean, do you cut them a break for that? No, but I think it's a lot better than so many Republicans who talk about a personal morality that they don't have, or so many Catholic priests, or so many Boy Scout leaders, who talk about a personal morality that they don't have, and then try to talk about other morality issues.
Right.
By the way, you're not improperly touching yourself, are you, Brian?
No, I'm just following how our show's going on Facebook. Believe it or not.
And I hope people are tuning out. I hope.
We have a few on Facebook. It's mainly YouTube tonight.
Well, that's the thing.
I think I can kind of tell from the comments where it's coming from. I think Joey might be on Facebook. Some people say they like the Facebook better, but
well, don't you think too, Brian? I mean,
no, he's not. I guess most everybody is on YouTube tonight.
Well, I can't. Again, we're not talking about the show as a show, but I think it's good to like go behind the scenes. We're doing that a little bit. Don't you think that probably if we followed it, it would be more or less, I don't want to say a generational thing, but what you're comfortable with? I mean, some people, I don't use YouTube. I mean, you're frequently a YouTuber. I don't really use that more. I use that for research, not for anything else so much. Facebook, I use for social. Twitter, I use for business. I'm looking at this new site that apparently started for gamers, but it's pretty good, called Discord. You've got Twitch, which is the Twitter version, or Periscope, right?
Right. But 17 people were watching since the beginning of the show on Facebook.
Do you realize that you were talking earlier about my girl, Stormy Daniels? If Stormy had a show, just her, not you and I, that she might have 17 million people watching, or rather, what'd you say, 7, whatever we had.
I can't keep up with comments now. I mean,
no, so find them. Come on, that's our job. That's your job. You're letting us down. We're supposed to deal with the peeps.
Maybe we're caught up.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, well, there's a lot of that, Sandy. I mean,
we always get more way on YouTube, Sandy says, but a lot of times we replay our shows and get more views on Facebook. But you know what, Sandy? A lot of members on Facebook. You have like 13,000 members or something on Facebook.
The other thing is, Sandy, I would say, and this is speaking in ignorance, but that's never stopped me. I think you have probably, and I'm not saying against us, you just have sheer numbers, and a lot of the environmental people I found are very sophisticated and use multiple platforms, right? Meaning, they're used to that. Where some people, I mean, I'm not going to make fun of my wife, but I'm going to kind of do that. It took me until 2 years ago to get her on Facebook, right? So they're, older people sometimes, feel, that's kind of the way I look at it. Certainly, I don't think we could go on TikTok, but that's out. But I mean, that's where young people are right now. Because young people always don't want to be associated with the older people. and they're even there. Brian, tie that in tonight. You're talking about is Donald Trump. Is there a difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden? I think there's a difference between Mark Zuckerberg and the operator of Twitter. One is, both of them, Zuckerberg is Trump and Twitter guy is Biden, if you're making the comparison, right? So, everything's a comparison.
Mm-hmm.
To share stuff to talk about during your streams. Oh, I thought it was going to be dreams. I thought Evil Yoda was going to tell us about the inside.
16,000. Look, she's got 16,000. That's tremendous, Sandy.
Oh, it's
16,000
great,
Facebook
Sandy.
members. I mean, we've been at 1,000. Of course, we are. I don't know if you're a private group. I don't think so. We're private. We purposely kept it.
And and also, we're very exclusive. Very exclusive. You have to be able to sign your name now. Well, that's another thing that's interesting as we move into this age of whatever we're in now of social media. You and I talked about it privately, not so much on the show. Is it better to have 100 people committed, or is it better to have 50,000 and 100 people committed? Right.
Wait, right. Just real quick. That is the final countdown. It depends on Dave, though.
Well, you know what? No, it actually. Wait a minute.
I mean, I could shut them off, but I wouldn't do that.
I'll take my share of that. But I remember one night, kids out there and because everybody can be a kid now that I'm old. One night, this is true story, Brian, and deny for sure. I bowed out. I went out to tell Judy I was done. I came back. You were still talking. I went back out and got something to drink. Came back in. You were still talking. So I don't think it's always me that runs over. A lot of times
I talk every once in a while. You know that.
You know what's funny though? That again, this is kind of, let's go with Dave and Brian's weird minds tonight. But it's what should I say? This is a fast 2 hours for me.
This has been a weird show from Candy Bar to Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, but you have to be able to count 9, 8 to be in this exclusive club. Oh, that's too much, Osama. We can't. We lose too many members.
There's that song. It's funny because I had Dave. Like, if you look at, I'm trying to. I'm actually thinking. I don't think it's. I think it's 13. I was thinking 9, 8, but there's a song because we had that yes thing. There's a song called Then. You get 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. I guess it's like 12 or 13, 8. I was just thinking 9. I used to think it was a 9, 8, but it's not. But there's a cool song called Then. It's an early song. Dave, you might be familiar with it, but it's like early yes. And it was one of their first kind of like popular tunes. And I really like that too because it's weird timings,
If you ever think that Brian and I get along too well, and we do, get us into music, because there we differ greatly. Some similarities.
Well, that's because we were 10. That 9 years makes a big difference in music.
Well, that and the fact that your musical taste sucks also enters into that, mindset. But you know what? I mean, even that you can relate to. I mean, people can have really big differing tastes in music. The age-old question from my beginnings is Beatles or Stones. Well, a couple of things wrong with that. It's that you can't like the Beatles and the Stones. I mean, that's part of where we find ourselves as human beings. Oh no, I've got to convince you that Yes sucks and Emerson, Lake and Palmer is better, or all progressive music sucks. There's only one good band, King Crimson.
Well, how to both you and I know that you can't really compare unless you're comparing Ted Nugent and Alan Holdsworth. I mean, that's a big difference in ability.
I think that Ted Nugent swinging in that loincloth that he does on that rope probably would do that better than Holdsworth did.
Yeah, Holdsworth wouldn't be doing that.
Exactly. That's my point.
Okay.
Ted Nugent is a piece of shit.
He's even worse than that. I thought this is kind of interesting. I normally wouldn't be sharing something like this, but
you're going to show us finally. You're going to show us the Russian girl.
No. It's that song Them, because I remember that was the coolest video because each player, early S, was playing the instrument they don't play. They all moved over. And I'll just play it, but it is, I forget if it's in 12/8 or 13/8, but it's one of my favorite odd signature tunes. And I'll probably get written up for this, whatever.
Everything about you is odd, so that doesn't matter.
But let's check this out, because I think you guys, look, if I'm going to show Candy Bar, I'll show this. Let me see, where am I? Can you see it, Dave? Is there like a...
I can see it. It's grayed out. I mean, is it supposed to be... It's almost
like a beach scene, right?
Yeah, but it's black and... I mean, not black and white, but it's not clear. So play it.
Okay, yeah, I want to play it. Let me get the correct settings on. Here we go. Here we go. It's a great tune. It's early S though, so it's, but it's a very odd time signature. But it's very cool, and everybody plays a different instrument. That's not Wakeman. That's Chris Squire. Yeah, I'm not obviously going to keep going on with that. Not going on with that, but I thought that was kind of cool because I actually wasn't everybody switching because Bruford was still playing drums, but it's that 1 2 3 1 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2. Yeah, I think it's 12/8. I'd have to count it out. Those kind of ones are hard.
No, that's a very you're right.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's not 9/8. I think it's 12/8.
And see, that's one of the things, ladies and
I
gentlemen.
love that.
Brian likes the 12/8. I like 4/4. It's countable.
Right.
Boom, boom, boom. Well, let's tie that into politics. Yes, rest in peace, Chris Squire. You made me do this. We're going to run over just for a moment, but with yes, I was more blown away, right, by Emerson, Lake and Palmer than I was, yes, initially. And I went to a concert in 70, 71, no, 70 or 71. It's not an important one. And I was really excited to see Emerson, Lake and Palmer. It was going to be, and Yes was going to open for them. And it was right when Fragile came out. And they opened with Roundabout. Wow. I mean, they
Let me get you on this while you're even saying that. It's got to be that.
No, it's true because, I mean, I really, I certainly appreciate it. And, what Emerson, Lake and Palmer did. But on that particular night, man, Yes, if it isn't a competition, but they were something else. So, but again, would I argue who really cares? If you say Yes is better, that's fine. If I say Emerson, Lake and Palmer is better,
I could listen to any of them. I mean that.
Yeah, well, or and I think one of the greatest albums of all time because of its drug implications, both in reality and in my own life, in the Court of the Crimson King. With Robert Fripp, who's a genius. Even now, I don't know if you've been following him. He and his wife have been making music in the pandemic. And there you are in the Court of the Crimson King. By the way, we argued over that. I wanted that.
This is the one I gave. This is before the show last week. Genesis. And I put, what a great album. And then I gave him the nicest. It looked great with his picture, his camera.
The only
and he said, no, I don't. He was like a big baby, and he had
the only thing good about Genesis was Peter Gabriel.
Now, Tony Banks was a wonderful writer.
God.
Tony Banks was great.
He was good, but he wasn't as good as Little Richard.
What is it about Little Richard you like so much? I don't know.
The fact, think about this.
No, I'm just joking.
I
should have
said
that.
No, I knew what you were saying. No, but you know what? Yeah, it's a valid question. I'm going to say musically. Do you realize he was flamboyantly gay even for today, and somehow was still somehow pulled it off, man? I mean, it was like, although again, if you do research into Little Richard, there was a point in his life. He was very much like our young shooter friend.
Welcome to the Divided We Stand music channel, where we are divided about our tastes.
Come on. Okay, Osama. Again, I'm not going to argue with you, but I actually had a very disturbing experience. I was writing about Mr. Collins in Philly, and I saw him with his shirt off, and that's something you don't want to see. Phil with his Phil is extremely talented. Of course, he's extremely talented. Again, it's a personal, preference.
Is that the story you were telling me where you had a Vicks Vapor Rub on his chest? And the hair got stuck in your hand or something? No? Okay.
That was another one of my stories.
Okay.
That
was Andre the Giant. I forgot.
That was another stormy day. The only wrestler I know know well is Mick Foley. I have interviewed him. Okay, there's a good one to end the show with.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever really think when you were a kid and you were watching professional wrestling, right?
Well, I used to watch
Yes.
like Chief Jay Strongbow.
Gary, that'll be something only you and I know coming from the area we did. But that's it. Yes. There are, we won't go into that, but Gary's absolutely right. Gary and I'll talk about that at some point. No, as I was saying, you look at these ideas. And so I followed, I don't know if you did, I followed professional wrestling a little bit when I was a kid. But Michael was of that generation, so, I'm going to bond with him. And we just had fun and we'd go. And I remember we would always, he knew it was fake. But this was right before now, everybody kind of knows that. But back then they were arguing. I can remember arguing with people, just fun argument at the Spectrum, Philly, and some other places, who young people all believed it was 100% real. And I'm going like, oh my God. Well, I thought that Donald Trump, who does have an association, right? He actually shaved Vince McMahon's head and appeared at a WrestleMania
Right,
and
he did
part of
do
that. And whoever
I
thought,
say, there can be some these people like.
well, I mean,
You
you
got to
can
find
draw.
our candy bar,
I mean, I mean, is there a real difference between? I just remember this one young couple in their 20s, and Michael and I just happened to be sitting next to him, and we talked.
Ooh, listen, this is some news here. We got late breaking news. My
Well,
ex-husband's first wife dated Andre the Giant. Well,
okay,
that's a
this is gonna
story.
be no, this is going to be terrible. But
I know what Dave's thinking right now.
No. Well, here's the thing. I got it. I'm not Sandy. I don't expect you to answer it. But when I was in Cuba, I was with National Geographic a few years ago, and the guy was actually had been a Rolling Stone writer, and I know him a little bit. Anyway, we got a chance to have lunch with Fidel Castro's mistress. Like he knew her, and he said to me, "I'm not putting you there because I know what you'll say, right? I know what you'll say." Yeah. And I said, "What?" I said, "I just want to know one question. How big was Fidel?" That's all I wanted to know. And now you said Andre the Giant, because I do know this. He would drink, as most people would drink, a 6-pack of beer. He would drink a case of beer. I mean, he's just a big man.
Yeah, they said he could drink, barrels.
Hey, Kim. No, I mean, and of course, but again, very much. Next show we're going to do. I want to do a show. I don't
on Andre the Giant?
No. I want to do
candy bar.
I want to do how professional wrestling represents today's Republican Party. Okay. I think we could do a really good show on that. Yeah. And I'm just thinking this. Think about wrestling. Any of you followed Andre the Giant, because of his size, was a villain, right? Then became a hero. And on one thing they did could be a villain. Very much the way today the fans react to the Republican heroes. Like one day Jeff Sessions is all that. You're says
spoiling next week's show. That
spending. Oh no, I can go on for that forever because there are a lot of ties to that. And actually, I mean, it's really, unfortunately, that's the whole media thing. Donald Trump, the apprentice, and Donald Trump, the president, two different goddamn things. Yeah. Oh, evil. You're absolutely, and evil. I want you to do some research for me, because I really do. I think you're very, very bright. I've never met you, and I don't have time to do everything. And if you can find out, I mean, really good research. I've looked at it a little bit. I really don't get this, and I'm being 100% serious now. We joke on the show, but I'm being serious. I look at Donald Trump and see one of the least masculine men I've ever seen in my life, trying to be tough. That's what I see.
Right.
And yet many, many Americans think he's really tough. I don't get that. How do they assume that when time after time after time he showed his weaknesses? I just don't get it. Gisela said, Andre, I've heard that. Again, it's not about the Andre the Giant. But there's another stereotype, right? Big men, stupid. He wasn't stupid.
He spoke 2 languages fluently.
Thomas
Beckett. He was friends with Thomas Beckett.
Who I don't know how the hell we're getting all this, but this is fun. So the commercial of the night, I said I watched my alma mater lose. I expect them to lose because Baylor. Take this to bank if you're betting on basketball.
By the way, I must interrupt. If you're just joining us, this is Divided We Stand, where we take the best of professional wrestling and discuss it.
And the NCAA tournament.
Right.
But so bet on bet on Baylor to win. But they run the same commercials, and I don't watch that much commercial TV. But there's one out now with the Kembe Mutombo on that. Have you seen that commercial at all?
Which
Do you know who?
I know
Yeah,
Dikembe
you know.
Mutombo
Okay.
is.
Well, he runs up. He's like, oh no, I get that. And he like.
Oh
people
yes,
start to-
yes, I
and he-
remember that. I remember.
Right,
Yeah,
and
okay.
he does. They did that one on him, and of course because Dikembe, do you know he was fluent in like 7 languages?
Yeah, you don't want to mess.
And-
You just
No.
never know about people too.
That's what I'm saying. Like Andre, you look at these big people, and you say, oh, they got to be, that's that stereotype. It's just that stereotype. We'll do a show on that, and the show
And Dave,
will be.
you have a host of information. You are like an expert on Stormy Daniels.
Well, no. Here's what I want to do. Osama's right though, but I want to show why Brian is wrong in the following subjects: pornography and sex, professional wrestling, prog rock, and politics.
You just
which
don't
is
like
really-
candy bar. That's your problem.
Oh, I do like candy. I don't like candy bars. I guess you don't want me to tell the story about Keith Richard, Mick Jagger, Mary Ann Faithful when they were arrested for drugs in the candy bar. It's also a fake news story, but it was believed. I guess you don't want to tell me. I won't tell that. I'll save that for another show.
I don't know.
We got to shut up at some. What time is it, Brian?
It's time to go. It's 10:22.
No. Oh God, we ran over. Who did that, Brian?
Well, I think I probably had something putting on the videos, and we did talk about music too. So that's
Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, I will.
We're probably going to get flagged for those 2 videos, which means it'll
I
cut it
don't-
out.
I
I
don't-
don't care.
Yeah,
Well, I don't monetize anyway, so they usually they don't bother.
No, I don't care. I mean, that's it. But the thing that is for anybody who wonders what the hell we're doing, we wonder too. But the fun thing I think is there are 2 things. One is just
Losing
fun,
my
and the other's
comments here.
one thing is just fun, and the other is a serious comment on that. The fun thing is what we're doing, ladies and gentlemen. Not Brian, not what we're doing, but
They're talking about you, Dave. But don't look. Just don't look at the screen.
I saw that. Well, you can go find the pictures. I can't find them, but they're out there. So
Well,
it's
he
not a
didn't
fan.
really have to. He was right there.
No, but the idea of it is, I think for that. See what you did, Sandy. I don't have much of a mind anyway, and you got me off track. No, the funny thing is, we live in some really serious times. We really do, and they're scary as shit. They really are, Brian. You know it. I know it.
Absolutely.
We all know it. But I think part of that is like that whistling. Sometimes you just, because it's really hard to find humor in a pandemic or to find humor in the Republican Party being more dangerous. I mean, who would think that an American party would be more dangerous than the Taliban? But they are. Okay, they are to us and America.
Right now they are. Yes, absolutely.
And so what happens, I think we kind of, or at least I do, this is kind of a release time for me. I mean, it's kind of be serious, but time to have some fun. And again, it's clearly shows we don't plan this show at all. All right.
No, we have too much going on, honestly.
Now, the other thing is, though, I'm of this belief, and this is my belief, and if people disagree with me, that's fine. I think as human beings, sometimes I think we're more. I don't mean this interconnected and we're all together, kumbaya. I'm just saying things are really interconnected, and you need to look at those because I do think professional wrestling and the attitude does have a reflection on politics. And your reaction to Stormy Daniels or Candy Bar, I mean, it's all of one, right? It's all of one. And I think so often, there are highbrow people, oh, that's below me, or there's lowbrow people, that's above me, or, oh, I deal with this. And, the more well-versed you are in things, and you don't have to be an expert, I think that's better. So my final word tonight is this. I've been happily married to my wife, Judy, we just celebrated our 48th, but I'm not telling her anything I haven't told her. Stormy, I think what we had was real. I don't know if you do. If you're out there tonight, just give me a call so we can know. That's my last comment.
It'd be great if your phone just rang now.
Well, it did, but it wasn't Stormy. It was Judy. I think she's watching. Oh, my God.
How about if Roseanne Barr called you?
I would refer to you. Very simply.
Depends on the bar, right? All right. Set your bar high. All right. Yeah, weird show tonight. It's all your fault, Dave.
Always,
Always
always.
your fault. No, you did a great job, Dave. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody. Um, yeah, I mean, and we had a lot of people come into the last half of the show to
Yeah.
and join us, and we thank you. And then next week, maybe we will do some wrestling talk or something like that. And
I don't know. I mean, Ty, because I think I'm not making this stuff up. Well, I am. No, what I'm saying is, I think, it's interesting how we hold certain things like up here, and politics has always been dirty. It's always been like professional wrestling. It's just suddenly now it's kind of clear that people believe the myths that professional wrestling had.
yeah,
Uh,
it's
it's amazing to me. Um, and I will say, Brian, I'm getting real close, so I'll have a big reveal next week. Not about you won't reveal the Russian women you were with, and I won't kiss and tell with the women I haven't been with. But I'm getting real close, as you know, Brian. I'm getting real close to doing another show that will be free to everyone on this network. And you think this show can be bad? Oh, you haven't seen me on my own. But I do know, as Brian has been kind enough to be one of the first guests on the show. So that could be interesting. I'll reveal more details. Remind me next week because it'll be
yeah. I wonder
debuting.
how I am as a guest. I don't really. I think I was on Sandy's show once. It was kind of right
Well, yeah,
before.
it's interesting. It really is a
I
different
wonder
role.
because I'm used to doing this kind of thing. And when
Yeah.
I did the reality report, it was kind of like the co-host thing. Paul asked the question more or less, and I would add some things. But I
Well,
was never really
yeah.
being interviewed. You know what I mean? There was nothing
Well,
about me that was that exciting anyway. I just kind of go into
it
philosophy.
was
And
funny. I mean, I've been on Sandy's show. I guess. Well, I was on your
you were on
reality
Sandy's
report.
show, and you were on
I
the
was on
reality
Sandy's shows, I
report.
guess. But Sandy again, not some kumbaya thing. But Sandy has the kind of personality, for any of you who don't know you, she really puts you at ease. I mean, she
Right.
really does. And I think what she's done with that channel, when you talk about doing good, that's doing the work of good. When you're just involved in, talking about the environment and pointing out that, hey, kids, we're in big trouble here, and we are. Big trouble, you run, you scream. No, you work to do something about it. And I think, and that's the other thing. We bring it up every show, but I don't know, just tonight, I guess. I'm amazed. I don't know many of these people, and they don't know me. It's a show, right? I know Joey, you. But it's really amazing how much just the comments and things make you feel like you do have a family. And certainly, they're better than some of my own family
In a
members
certain
who are
way,
Trumpers.
there is a more direct connect because you have people who, they know there's some shared mental aspect
Yeah.
that's there.
And that's part of this divided we stand.
Yeah,
You
we
know,
know that the other side's always wrong.
well, you know what? And I hate to say that almost because remember, I came and you've pointed out before, I was more, they were wrong, but I figured not that I could change them, but there was some logic or some meaning or some reason for them. That's before they became a direct threat to America. And they are. I mean, if anybody can convince me I'm wrong, I'm open to it, right? I'm really open to it. So anybody on this show, if you have someone out there who can convince me that there's merit and worth, my wife pointed out to me, and I promise we got to stop. But I just thought this was interesting. Did you see where Mitt Romney won an award for the Hero Award? Did you saw that this week? He did. I just in
Hero
passing.
what?
For standing up against Trump. And I kind of have mixed feelings about that. I mean, what he did, yeah, okay. But again, we're talking earlier, you were saying about Dr. Bixble there, and I was talking about
Ugh.
Fauci and these people we hold up. To me, there's a consistency to it. Now, I understand that Mitt Romney is a Republican. I understand he's a conservative. I've talked to people when he was governor of Massachusetts. They said, actually, he was a pretty good governor. He got some progressive things done, believe it or not. But it's a progressive state, right? But the point became that he kind of sold his soul. He went far to the right when he was running against Obama, right? And I suppose he had to, because that was, this didn't just happen. But, if you're going to be, I guess my thing is, if you're going to be consistently against Trump, be consistently against him. Not because he's a Republican, just because he's Trump. And Trump has never done anything good in his life that I can find.
Right. Well, Dave, I think we're going to end it right there. We're going to go
Very
to
good.
the outro if I can find it. You know, geez, I mean,
Why don't you do this? Why don't you just do the candy bar as an outro tonight?
I don't know if I get flagged or not. You
You
know,
will get flagged,
yeah.
but that's fine. Do you care?
Yeah, actually, I kind of do. I like
Why?
to have. I want to have that standard thing.
You know what you want, ladies and gentlemen. This is a reveal. Brian has been caught 17 times this year, supposedly monitoring his students on a camera, and he's actually watching himself on the week before show. You just
Okay. Let me find this thing if I can find it. Now, see, I shouldn't even have that. But I'm gonna find it real quick because I want to make sure it's right. Let me get to the outro. For God's sakes, choose file. Maybe I'll just choose something out of the blue, something different. We all like the Beau Grenadier song. Let's just see if we have something different. I don't want to get in trouble. Jeez, I'll get in trouble for all these. Can't do those. All right. Film art. Okay. I don't know which one is which. I really lost that because I kept. Oh, now that one I got that one taken off before. I get everything taken off, folks. I can't get this thing right. I'll try to see. Is this it?
Dans Lyon, il y a une jolie fille. Dans Lyon, il y a une jolie fille. Elle est jolie, parfaite en beauté, qu'elle a charmé. Elle a charmé le cœur d'un grenadier. Bon grenadier, amène-moi dans ta chambre. Bon grenadier, amène-moi dans ta chambre. Oui, dans ma chambre, je t'emmènerai et je te donnerai. Et je te